All right, let's go ahead and get started here today. It's great to look out here and see all our employees in Lancaster County and what y'all do for the citizens of this county. You know, y'all are the faces of government for the citizens. I mean, you're the firefighters, their law enforcement, their recreation, their planning, their stormwater, and everything. And we do appreciate what y'all do. And I think Mr. Marstell will have a special presentation here in just a few minutes. With that, would you please rise and join Council Member Billy Marsteller as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, be with us as we begin preparing for our new budget and other county business. Give us open minds as we begin this process. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Let's move down to our approval of our agenda. I have a motion.
So, second.
Motion from Mr. Blackman, second from Mr. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have 4 for and 3 absent, so it's still unanimous. Let's move down. We have a special presentation, recognition of employees for their work during the January ice storms, presented by Darren Player, Fire Emergency Service Director, Clay Cato, EMS Director, Jeff Cato, Public Service Director, and Robert Purser, Public Safety Communications Director. Mr. Marstow.
Mr. Chairman and council members, it's my pleasure and honor to be here today with so many outstanding members from the Lancaster County. A bunch of different operations and departments are represented here today. As we highlighted in some of your program information or background material, is on January 15th. We had a big storm event that blew through the area. It was really one of the first ice storms or snowstorms that we've had in about a decade. And so I want to recognize some of the folks who helped keep our operations going. My belief has been that whenever we have storms or issues in our community, that people look to government the most. That is when government is needed the most, oftentimes, is in the case of an emergency. And so my preference has always been, we've got to keep government operations going during these times. And so I'm pleased to say that during my short tenure here, it's actually nice to come into an event where you have a staff that is knowledgeable, they know their roles, they know what needs to be done, and they just do it. And that is what happened on January 15th and through that weekend of the MLK weekend. And then we had the unusual January where we had 2 additional weekends where we had storm events or snow events. And so really what we wanted to do today is we're going to hear from the different department leaders about what some of their staff did during these snow events. But in short, really I'm pleased and proud with the work they did to really just get the job done, to make sure that we could still do our services, and particularly our emergency first responder services, I think was important. And so I really do want to bring up the directors want to recognize folks. We do have a program within the county called the Thumbs Up Award. And so everyone who's recognized today will get a thumbs up certificate for their efforts, so we can note that. Hopefully they'll put that on their wall or in their office or vehicle or wherever it may be. That's appropriate, but certainly want to give a little token. Really just a small token of appreciation for the work of really going above and beyond and for doing what it takes to get the work done to keep the county rolling. And so we'll start with Jeff Cato and get a little recognition for the Public Works folks during the events.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as Mr. Marstoff said, during the events, the Public Works crews were called out for a majority of things, cutting trees, assisting SCDOT with what little bit of accumulation was on the roads at the time. They also, building maintenance came in, secured some structures, made sure generators were running. We had some members of fleet ops in to make sure that the vehicles all were working. And again, just assisting and working together with the EMS departments and the fire service. Again, lots of help. We all just kind of worked together and did our parts of what we could do to help. And again, I know they're not a part of the county, but also SCDOT, we worked very closely with on this because during that event, especially the first one, their maintenance office was stricken with like 9 absences for COVID, and they also had to switch some plows over to other areas in the state that were hit a little heavier with accumulation. So they were really understaffed and depended on us a lot, and like I said, firemen and everything else, everybody just kind of worked together to get things clear, but the public service guys did that and also kind of kept the driveways of these emergency places, EMS stations, fire stations cleared if needed, sheriff's department, because again, to reflect what Mr. Marshall said, government, we had to keep running, so we got out and even had to, on one of the events, had to at least try to get one convenience site open, you know, because with the trash, you know, people, if it wasn't bad, they still expected to be able to have that service, so we were able to get one open during the event, which that's a hard operation to just stop and close and open this, that, and the other, so we had some employees come in, move some cans out of the way because the landfills were full. So it was just all in all, I think it was just a group effort, and I applaud everyone here and everyone that does their job every day. That's why usually when we stand up here and we say we, that's what we mean, because it takes everyone to do it. So at this time, if the public service crew could stand and be recognized. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cato.
And I'd like to highlight that, yes, Jeff and I were sitting in his office when the power went out on that Sunday, I think, and trying to get the generator going. So certainly some interesting memories from that day. I next want to call up Darren Player to talk about the fire service and the role with the emergency management. And again, a nod to Darren, because as we went into this event, he was definitely talking to our state partners from emergency management, from the weather service, kind of giving me the clues on what was to come and the predictions to come. So I really appreciate his heads up on that event.
This event was a little bit unique in that the ice storm, they had predictions of it for just about the whole week ahead. So we had warning that it was coming. We were hoping that that wasn't going to be the case, but it did end up materializing. The guys that you see standing on the back wall back there with the fire uniforms on were called out that Sunday morning because we did have ice. We began to get more and more accumulation as the day progressed. Power began to go off. But the biggest problem was trees began to fall in the road. And so they were working in their teams of 2, and sometimes as 1, and sometimes as several teams coming out. They were being dispatched all over the county. And you're going to hear from one of the dispatchers. Robert will be talking about one of them in a little bit. But that person was handling both our calls and the EMS calls. And that's a lot for one person to be able to do. So ultimately then we called in Brian Stogner to begin to do our own dispatching of our crews and keep them moving. He came in about 10:30 or 11 that morning. And by that time we realized she was overwhelmed with what she was trying to keep up with in the dispatch center. So from an emergency management standpoint, we didn't have to call in any state assets, but I was made aware on the Friday before the storm from state DOT, and I would like to echo what Jeff says. We work well hand in hand with state DOT here, particularly locally. Clint Beaver called me and told me that we were going to be pretty much on our own except on the primary roads. They had staff pulled out. The state is shorthanded across the state, and because of the COVID things and all the things that have gone on with that during the year and the past 2.5 years, they were pulling crews from here to the interstates. So he was going to have to primarily allocate his resources to the primary roads, which would be 521, the heavily traveled roads, the number 9, Highway 521, even 522 and 97 took sort of secondary status. So we knew that going in. So I had the guys ready. We talked as the week progressed. We did send them home with their pickups. They don't normally do that, but we sent them home with their pickups so they'd be able to respond from home and get things moving quicker. And I'd like to tell you, one of them made the statement the other day, well, we were just doing our job. And that's true. It is their job. That's what they signed up for. But the thing is that not only did they do their job, they went above and beyond doing their jobs. They came in that morning, early on we had staff out, to check the roads. By about 8:30 or 9, we called in everybody that was able to work then. And they all got on the roads, and they worked until some of them almost 10 o'clock that night. I called time at about 8 o'clock and told them we'd go home, and if necessary, we'd come back out on Monday morning. But several of them were working on a couple roads. They felt like it was really dangerous. It was dark. The power was off in that area, so there was no lighting. And they wanted to work on just to be able to complete that road and get it open to where if somebody decided to travel, and we recommended against that, but if somebody decided to, they wouldn't run into those trees. So they went above and beyond what's expected of them for their job. You know, we pay everybody, and we've got benefits, and we appreciate the job that the county gives us and the things that we do, but they gave y'all and the citizens of this county about 3 hours for every hour they got paid for that day. I'm going to tell you, it's hard running a chainsaw. And most of you've done that, I think, so you've got experience with it. They did that all day long, from one part of this county to another part of this county. Everything from about 5 east and south in the pan of the county this time was where the dangers were. And it was where the heavy ice was. Down Mr. Blackman's area, He Springs to Kershaw, got the heaviest of ice. They probably got a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. Over on the west side of the county, the Belltown, Cedar Creek areas, we got anywhere from 1/4 to a ½ inch of ice. So a lot of power outages. Lynch's River was hammered. Can't say enough about those line crews for both Lynch's River and Duke Energy. York Electric, the other co-op in the county, did not have any damage in this county. But Duke Energy was hammered on the east side of the county, and Lynch's River was hammered everywhere in the south. Their line crews did an exemplary job getting the power back on in the time period that they did it. So I'd have my guys step forward if they would. They got the whole back wall covered, so there they are. And also, as they were out, the volunteer departments were responding too. A lot of them didn't have to come out, but some of them did, and when they came out, they were toe-to-toe with the guys right out there trying to get their communities back in service and keep the roads there open as well. So it's a team effort working with Public Works. I don't know how many times I talked to Jeff that day. Clay and I talked a couple times. Then we moved to the snowstorm the following weekend. That Friday, we had a terrible wreck on 522 in the Rich Hill area. The gentleman, I don't even think was from this county, but EMS needed some escort to make sure that they could get that patient to the hospital. Ended up carrying them to Charlotte. So we had units along with volunteers on the scene cutting the people out of the vehicle. Took a long time to get him out. He had 2 femur fractures, which are bleeding fractures. So he's in bad shape. We used chase vehicles, the pickups, along with, I ended up calling the north end stations, Indian Land and Pleasant Valley. They blocked the red lights so that we could open the traffic up and keep the ambulance moving. I think he made just about as good a time as he would have if we'd have been able to get him in a helicopter, given that the helicopters weren't willing to fly that night. So got him to the hospital. I know he was alive there. I pray he's still alive. We don't find out much after that. That was the next event where we had a lot of people out working as well. The next snow event turned out to sort of be a non-event. It was pretty on the ground. It lasted just a little bit, went away. That's the good snow. So I'm appreciative of how hard my guys work, and I thank you for recognizing them today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
I want to ask Robert Persher to come up as a nerve center with the 911 system, certainly fielding all the calls. I think at one point in time we had 30 power lines down and 20 trees down, and you were fielding all those calls. So, Robert?
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank y'all for this opportunity. As Mr. Marstall was saying, the snow event that we had was, or the ice event, was very significant. And if you could see all the people that were on the back wall and everybody in here, Public Works included, if you heard a voice that day on the radio, it was Miss Kimberly Lawing. She single-handedly dispatched fire and EMS by herself for close to 13 hours that day. That is maintaining radio contact, checking on the responders, notifying utilities of problems, anything from taking down that a tree's down, a power line's down, anything like that. And just her ability to multitask and do the job she did, felt like she definitely deserves this recognition today. So Kimberly, if you'll stand up, please. Thank
All
y'all.
right. Thank you.
And then I want to now ask Clay Cato to come forward with EMS to talk about some of the issues that they had to deal with that day, and a lot of folks who were out and about. I know I had the opportunity to stop by the headquarters that day, and I know there are a few cots out for that night and the weekend, and had some long hours and long nights. So Clay?
We did. First of all, thank you guys for allowing us to recognize our employees again. Just to echo a lot of things that Darren has said. I, as the director of EMS, would like to thank the fire service for not one call. Darren forgot about the other one. But we had a life or death transport that we got a call from MUSC. And I believe F6 is sitting right there. I believe he escorted, that was Keith that did it that night. Keith, F2, escorted him all the way to Rock Hill. And that was the beginning of the first storm when the ice began to get really bad. And that was a plea from MUSC that we allowed them to take that. Other than that, it was kind of business as normal for us. We did not see a decline in the calls. During the first storm, for the 2 days, we ran 111 total transports. And the second weekend, we ran 116, which is about normal for us. What we did extra was we provided food for our staff. We cooked hot soup on the days at our new headquarters, and we delivered it to the stations. Therefore, the crews didn't have to go out and look for food, so we tried to take care of them on the backside. We had extra staff deliver supplies around to the stations, so as they began to use supplies and dwindle down medical supplies, we resupplied them with that. We did not get a single truck stuck, with the exception of the one truck that got stuck on 522 with the big wreck that Darren talked about, and the fire service pulled out there. So hopefully we had no injuries and we destroyed no vehicles, which is really good in a situation like that. We saved the county money. So basically, I want to, ladies and gentlemen in the back row, this is just a few of them. Obviously, we couldn't bring everybody because the crew that was working that night is actually on shift today. So they're out saving lives right now. So if these guys and gals will stand up, thank you for their service.
Again, we thank all of you. Dennis, anything else you want to say?
No, just really appreciate the teamwork and the communication, because it really did show, particularly with the emergency responders, with the sheriff as well, making sure that there's some assistance with the highway patrol and the SCDOT. So I thought the communication and coordination was outstanding, and I think the citizens are the better for our efforts. So thank you.
You're all welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, now might be a pretty good time. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, let's move on down to citizens' comments. Please bear in mind, this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. We have George Curlin.
Good afternoon, Council Chair, members of Council, Mr. Marstall, and everyone else here. My name is George Curlin. I live at 3014 Santee Court, Indian Land, and I'm speaking to you today as the Vice Chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I speak directly to Agenda Item 7B, the Capital Project Sales Tax Excess Funds. Most of us are familiar with the financial history surrounding the county library expansion project. with the possible exception of Mr. Marstall. Without reciting those specifics, we know that the county library, the county procurement department, and the county council worked cooperatively over the past 3.5 years to increase the bare bones budget for the expansion of each library. Council listened to our needs and made adjustments appropriately. In the several months since reopening, the librarians have become aware of certain deficiencies, unanticipated issues, or different outcomes from what was designed that need attention for the library to address the needs of our patrons. Examples of these include the following. The building security systems at the main library in Del Webb need improvements and enhancement, especially to allow outside groups to utilize our meeting spaces after hours. This includes the addition or adjustment to the security cameras, the motion detectors, the security alarm keypads, and the badge scanners. Correction of these issues is necessary to meet the library's mission of serving our community. No money was budgeted for an audio system in the meeting rooms at Main or Del Webb. The Del Webb branch has been unable to continue its highly attended weekly movie nights due to lack of audio. We cannot mic a speaker for meetings. These deficiencies need correction. Wi-Fi cabling was not installed in the children's area of the main library or at the Del Webb branch. The librarians have had to devise workarounds to accommodate patron needs. The staff has no external control over the HVAC system from within the library at Main. The controls need to be moved. The operable meeting room divider partition at Del Webb, which was installed as a manual system and is inoperable at present by staff. These are just some of the highlighted examples. The Library Board of Trustees would like the county to reserve a portion of the $23 million CPST excess to correct these deficiencies and add back expenditures from the original budget that were value engineered out of the original approved design. The Library Director and the Board of Trustees will send a list of those items to Mr. Marstall and the Procurement Department within the next 2 weeks. We all realize how Section 340 reads. The board is not asking for funds for frivolous niceties, but merely money for items value engineered out of the original budget or to correct deficiencies in the current design. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present the wishes of the library board.
Thank you. That concludes our citizens' comments. Let's move down to our discussion and action items. ARPA budget overview. Kim Belt.
Mr. Chairman, as Ms. Belt comes forward to do a presentation, this is the portion of the meeting where we're kind of dedicated to a budget workshop. And so I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. We have a lot of the agenda items on here. Some of you have heard already from our council retreat on January 21st. So some of this will be some updated information from that. But really, as I think about this in terms of the budget context, as we're going forward, as my first budget workshop with you, is really I want to kind of highlight the approach to the budget that I'm taking, and these conversations will help me to craft the budget as we go forward, is really I view the budget as first a spending plan for the county. What we put in the budget will be the spending plan going forward. I also see it as a communications plan to let the citizens and let folks know kind of how we anticipate spending things, so it's a communications plan. But third, it's also a prioritization plan. Where are we putting our county resources and what are we prioritizing going forward based upon your prioritization as council members, what I bring forward from the staff perspective, and together we'll put together the budget. So my hope is that during this process is I can get a lot of feedback from you. There will be some specific questions that are asked of you today to give some feedback for me so I can help craft the budget, see where there's some things you want incorporated into the budget, some things you may not want incorporated into the budget. And so I really see these next three, we got at least 3 budget workshops going forward, is really the opportunity to hear from you to give me the feedback. So when I come forward with a budget recommendation on April 29th, that we should be in sync. So we won't have any surprises, certainly from me. And if there are some things that you all want to bring up during these different conversations, I'd welcome that today. And as I said, we'll tee you up on some specific feedback we'd like to have as part of this budget conversation. And so really I see this as the input process. And if there are different topics, we are going to talk mainly about some staffing, personnel issues in some of this today. We have some decision points we've got to do to build the budget around the ARPA funds. But as we go into the next budget workshops in March and April, we will talk specifically about the capital program, and we'll talk specifically about operations. So we'll also have that time scheduled for you to give the feedback on everything from fleet, buildings, general operations. So we want to just take these different workshop opportunities to make sure that we're hearing what some of your priorities are and some of the things that you think are important as I build the budget going forward. So just want to open that up for dialogue, and then start on the first topic. As we talked at the council retreat in January about, we have the $19 million that we've received in ARPA funds. We did a presentation for you at what we did for an internal process, asking departments what the internal needs were, and we gave you that list. At that retreat, you asked me to come back with a prioritized list of those projects, which we have done. We've added some other things for conversation, and so this is the opportunity for input going forward. And so I'll turn it over to Kim, and she can highlight the process and then highlight the prioritized list that I've created. And then certainly we have built in this, as you'll see from the funding recommendation, we have built in here an opportunity for council input if there are some ARPA eligible projects that we have not heard or seen, an opportunity for council members to give us some input, and we can do some more research and see about incorporating some additional projects with these funds. So we'll let Kim start us out, and we'll take your input and feedback at the conclusion of her presentation. Kim?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of council. As Mr. Marstall said, I'm back before you today to discuss the ARPA projects and recommendations for those, get your feedback so that we can start the process of bringing these before y'all for formal approval and get the ball rolling on some of the projects. A lot of this information should look familiar, but just to summarize, we received just over $19 million with what we have already committed to funding. We have about $15.5 million left. Veronica did submit our first quarterly report to the Treasury Department on January 31st for the projects that we already began spending funding on. And just again, for our timeline purposes, all funds have to be obligated by 2024 and expended by 2026. I'm not going to go as in-depth with these, but just a reminder, our eligible use categories are lost revenue, replacement, support of the COVID-19 public health and economic response, premium pay, as well as water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I discussed this at the retreat as well. The Treasury came out with the final rule, and they are allowing a $10 million standard allowance for lost revenue. That is the most flexible category and can be utilized for government services. Currently, our projects as proposed in the list attached, I'm saying could end up taking up $8.5 to $9 million of that. It could be more or it could be less depending on whether our interpretations end up matching. We're trying to interpret the guidelines that they have set for us. We would like to leave some wiggle room in case something that we've interpreted falls into one category, but they say that it does not. So I'm being conservative with that. I think that there's several that could fit into this category as well as another, or a portion of a project may fit into one or another, but I did want to put that number out there to y'all today. This is just a detailed list of what's already been approved. The projects that we have begun spending funding on that Veronica did include in her first report. Obviously the premium pay, we expended the funding for the masks for EMS in the coroner's office, and then the glass barriers. So today I'm here to present the recommended projects in addition to those previous allocations. Internal projects submitted by county departments equal over $14.5 million in terms of recommendations. There's a proposed $100,000 for a nonprofit or community program. $500,000 for water sewer infrastructure projects, and then $293,000 for either contingency if projects go over budget, or this is what Mr. Marstall was referencing. It could be used for any project ideas that maybe y'all have or have heard of that we do not have on the list.
If we ask questions now, do we wait till the end?
Go ahead.
First of all, I don't think $100,000 for nonprofits is very much, because I don't think y'all realize what the nonprofits do for this community. Everyone probably will not qualify for this funding, but the ones who will qualify, remember, they had lost revenue too during the pandemic. I look at people in the community as my infrastructure. Nonprofits reach a great number of people in this community, and they have suffered over the last 2 years, including my agency. Not that I'm going to apply for any money, because it's probably a conflict of interest, but they also struggle. So $100,000 is not saying very much for the nonprofit world.
My concern, we got 3 years to spend this, and I know they're all needs, but there's a lot of wants in here too. How would these departments be paying for these upgrades if we didn't have this money? And I am going to allow, and I want council, before we make any decisions, any projects they want to consider. What I would really like to see, we're spending all this money right here on county services. We're not spending it on our constituents. They're the ones that paid us tax money. They need benefits out of it. They lost 2 years of recreation out of their lives. I know we're building a new park. I have a vision of upgrading, spending money on our citizens that were really affected, our special needs kids and young adults who were not able to get out. In York County, they have built what they call Dream Park or something. I would like to see us target some of this money to upgrade our county park. I don't know a cost figure, but I would be thinking at least $1 million. And look at other services that will benefit our constituents. I know there's a lot of this stuff on here, and I would like, personally, I would support doing 2 or 3 projects the first year, seeing how the money actually run. I know we got to have a coroner's office. I know IT is very important, but some of this other stuff to me can wait, and that's just my thought on this right now.
Mr. Chairman, before we get too far down the conversation, would it be okay if we go ahead and just have her finish so people can see the projects on there, and then
Yeah,
we'll take
go
the
ahead.
conversation?
Okay. So, I have included in the agenda a PDF that has the prioritized project list. It looks something like this. And it is in priority order for the internal project submissions. I'm just going to run down that list really quick for everyone's sake. So the first project listed are the audiovisual system replacement for council chambers. Second is the countywide network overhaul. Third is bandwidth and remote operations upgrade for our sheriff's office. Fourth is the remote workstations. Fifth is the administration building security upgrades. That item has been added to the list since what was presented at the retreat. That would basically replace our current system to include motion sensors, cameras, and an upgraded burglar alarm to increase our building security at this facility. The coroner's office, as Mr. Chair mentioned, the building expansion for them. On the second page there, the 7th item listed is the camera system at 911. 8 is the evidence storage facility at the sheriff's office. 9 is the headquarters bay construction. Again, want to note a change to that figure. It does include the $300,000 for the additional bay at HQ, but it also has added in another $100,000 for storage of the ambulance bus, which is further down on this list. 10 is the sheriff's office request for the embedded mental health services. 11 is the ambulance bus I just mentioned for EMS, which would allow them to transport multiple patients. 12, again, another new item is a new and expanded facility for our registrations and elections department with the new requirements or potential for new requirements with early voting. That department's current space will not suit their needs to be in compliance. 13 is the public defender edition that was submitted by the clerk of court. 14 is the digital records indexing, which opens up access on our website to digital records for both the Register of Deeds and Assessors Department. 15 is the GIS server replacement. 16 is the vendor software replacement for procurement. 17 is a storage warehouse for emergency management for storage of our stockpile of PPE and supplies. 18, again, another change from the retreat, the Barnett building renovation. That would just allow us to move potentially our IT department over to the Barnett building and maybe some future departments as well to free up our space in other facilities. 19 is the parking lot reclamation and addition, and that is at Springdale and Melvin Steel. 20 is the airport internet capability, which just would increase their internet speeds, which are too slow currently for meeting their business needs. Water fountain replacement in 40 current water fountains in various county facilities. Risk management had a request for PPE and supplies countywide. And then last would be the culvert replacement for stormwater at Ander Vincent. The 3 items I already highlighted, the nonprofits program, water and sewer infrastructure and contingency, are also listed on that page. And I do want to also quickly run through what is not recommended to be funded from the request that y'all were given previously. That is the recurring administrative assistant position for the sheriff's office, the personal protective equipment and supplies for the sheriff's office, as we're going to do the county-wide supply through risk management. I said that emergency management was getting funded for, was recommended funded for a storage warehouse. Their full request was $1.9 million. It was recommended at $1 million, with the idea being that we have some potential maybe to combine their facility with the evidence storage building for the sheriff's office to maybe save some money that way. And then finally, there were 3 other stormwater projects that were requested, and we only recommended 1 of them.
Questions now?
Yeah, and I just want to highlight the one about the water sewer contribution of $500,000. There is a specific project, and I have information on that Ms. Simpson has down here, a handout for you from the water sewer. We can talk about that in depth if you want to. I just want to throw that out there. Also, I want to make sure I highlighted for the council is that part of the money that you have already approved was the $334,000 for United Way for the homeless housing. So we've already committed $334,000. But we may have to come back to you on that program has not been executed based upon availability of temporary housing for the homeless. So that may be some money we have to reprogram later on. But we do, I just make sure we had that on the radar that we already have $334,000 in with the nonprofits. So, Mr. Chairman, that's our presentation. Oh, and I did want to add, as you do think about the prioritization or the timing of this, part of the issue about getting this to you now and our hope of bringing it to you, as we said, start bringing some items forward for your formal adoption at the February 28th meeting, is because although we have a lead time now through 24 and ultimately 26, the anticipation with every jurisdiction in this country spending this federal money, our supply chain is going to be stretched even more, and our availability of these items, I think, is 6 months to a year out. And if we're even talking about building facilities or doing upgrades, this is going to go fast, or we're going to be sitting on this money for a long time. So as we go forward, my hope is that some of these we can identify today, particularly the IT, because our understanding of purchasing servers and other things is at least a 6-month lead time. And so if you think about, we can take our time and think about these things, yes, that's fine from the federal timeline, but practically, to get these things and get these projects done, I think it's going to be more of a challenge than people realize with every government spending millions of dollars on these. So, Mr. Chairman?
All right, y'all heard my comments.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a few comments, please, sir. I'm seeing here that we have a evidence storage building for $1,440,000, and then the other storage was to be $1 million with a combination of two. I'd like to discourage that. I don't think that we should have anything attached to the evidence building. It is too important that the Sheriff's Department has a standalone building where nothing else goes in that building except evidence, because anything tainted in that evidence building could result in a new trial, some criminal getting out of prison because of it. So I'd like to discourage us doing that. I don't think we ought to even consider doing that. $1 million build a nice building, but $1,400,000 build a nice evidence building. And I don't see anything in here about sheriff's vehicles. We're going to be in dire need unless we plan to put it in the budget for this year, which would be a good idea, because we have over 20 plus vehicles in the Sheriff's Department now that are over 125,000 miles. The state recommends changes when you have that kind of mileage. So I hope we'll look very close at that. But the storage building and the evidence building should not be in the same building. It should be separated.
And I do think we've had the conversation about the vehicles, right, Mr. Marstell, about them being in another pot of money, and doing the cycle, referencing them going on a cycle so we can renew that fleet every so many years. Did we not have that discussion?
I've not had that formal conversation with you all since I've been here, but my understanding is that we have been on a pretty good clip of replacements for the sheriff's vehicles in particular, but all departments, but I think at least my understanding is we've done 7 to 10 vehicles a year for the last 7 years. So yes, we're on that clip of doing replacement. There are multiple ways to fund our fleet needs, whether CIP capital, general operating, or maybe there's some ARPA opportunity. But yes, fleet vehicle replacement is a part of every operating budget. The extent that we can replace all the needs from the sheriff to public works to EMS, I have to evaluate that yet. I don't know all those
But
requests.
we will be looking in that.
Oh, absolutely. Fleet will be a conversation.
And I would like to see us look at some alternatives. Might not make some people happy out here, but the PPEs, it was only 2 years ago when local, state, and federal governments figured out they had a problem. They had a bunch of stuff that was outdated. All this stuff apparently is medical devices, and it all has an end date. And you know, I know the state does some of this. I would like to check into that. And you know, I don't know how much stuff we have to warehouse, but we got a big building up there we just completed, and I walked through, and there seems to be a lot of space up there. I don't know how much space we need to store gloves and gowns. You know, when when you build another building, you got operating costs that go with that every month. It's gotta be heated and humidified, it's gotta be, it can't just sit in a warehouse that's not climate controlled. Before I can commit to anything on that, I would like to see the alternatives explored on how much space do we actually need? I mean, what is the, I know the evidence, storage, what are we gonna be storing? How much space, do we actually need?
Talking about storing cars and stuff in the shed.
Yeah, I know, but how much, when you store the cars, that's gonna free up room in the existing. I mean, do we need 5,000 square foot, 10,000 square foot?
Well, no matter what you need right now, that's something that's gonna grow, so we might as
Yeah.
well build in some growth.
Yeah, I understand that, and you can also stack those vehicles.
Oh,
You
I
can
agree,
buy-
yes.
This building needs to be built high enough, where you can buy racks for $2,000 or $3,000 a piece is a lot cheaper than
Square footage.
extra square footage, so.
I would also like these funds to be used to offset general funds or other funds that we may be able to use. I think that we should look at that first. If we got other source of funding, we should also look at that. We should look at what we should fund without another source of funding. And I'm looking up there at next steps, and I guess y'all wonder why I focus so much on nonprofits, because that's my life. I live around nonprofits, and I know what the conversations are. But you got some up there about partnership with Aris Foundation. So explain a little bit to me about partnership.
That is, I was gonna ask for feedback on that while I was up here. We can either run an internal process if we do end up doing a nonprofit program. We can either run an internal process where our staff would handle it, or they have offered to help us run basically a call for submission process and evaluation process on submittals for those projects.
Usually with nonprofits, and the United Way is the lead agency for handling nonprofits. And I know Aris Foundation has a foundation, and they do grants. But the familiarity with nonprofits is United Way. And to me, that would be the fiscal managers, if we decide to go in that direction, is United Way, because they work with 27 plus nonprofits, and they already have all of our information. They have all of our 990s, our tax information. They already have all of that. So why create a wheel and do that when we can go through our local United Way?
Mr. Chairman, could we get Darren to tell us what is gonna go in $1 million building for our storage? I know we got turnout gear and all this, but $1 million building will take you can put a lot of stuff in $1 million building.
Mr. Player? Darren, you wanna make a comment?
We designed the building that we presented, first off, without having any land, and we don't know exactly where land would be, so that, all of that total cost has land figured in it as well. We did figure a building large enough that it can be, based on the Fitch study, converted into fire station use. This building was figured to be sprinkler protected. All of that's already in it, so that as we have to build county fire stations, wherever this is located, it could be converted to that and use the area for storage, or add an area for storage. You'd have that already done in it. We also built it high enough to be able to pull a fire truck in and work in a bay. It's got bay doors in it, so that if there's not something stored in that spot, Billy and Chico can pull a truck in, work on it out of the weather, and then pull it back out. That also included all of the paving around it, concrete work around it for apron, to allow tractor-trailer trucks to pull up, and us to be able to unload outside. We didn't necessarily do a dock, because you'd have to raise it. There's a lot of dirt work involved in that. But we would unload the tractors outside and then go in. If we had to rent a forklift, we don't really want to own one, but we can have one delivered and rent it when we have deliveries coming.
Where is your supplies now?
Right now, what we got from the state is stored at a local church that's willing to allow us to have space in their place.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
few observations. Kim, thank you for this list.
Mr. Chairman, you done with me?
Yeah, any more questions for Darren? All right, thank you.
So here comes the other foot, Kim. No, not to you. But council members, I'm not really familiar with some of this that we've got here. For an example, I may have just missed it. The Public Defender Edition, is that, I don't even know what that is. Is that like building a building, or is that like just upgrading and?
That's expanding the office space. So, they have office space currently in our courthouse. We have some future, I think that's the third floor over there, future courtrooms that we could develop as courtrooms that were built for future growth when we constructed that facility. So they're talking about taking their offices into one of those future spaces, which would allow them for more office space.
Okay.
So it's just really an expansion of their
I think
office.
Is it a needed expansion? That's my,
well, I'd say that's part of the piggyback, is I understand that we added some staff to that office.
I think the state did.
The state added, as part of the COVID, the state added staffing to that, and so now the resulting effect is they're too tight on space. And so they are requesting, basically this would make out 3 to 4 offices, and they would carve out a little bit more space in the courthouse for those additional staff that's been hired.
did not the solicitor request some additional space at one time?
The solicitor, so that was 6 years ago maybe. It was when we switched over to capital project sales tax 2, we had the excess, and that was in the first, the courthouse was the first capital project sales tax, so we had excess from that. So before we rolled what was left over into 2, there was spacing needs, and we allowed the courthouse to kind of look back at maybe some things with that project that weren't what they expected or weren't meeting their needs, and the solicitor office got space through that funding source. So they did expand, but at the time, the public defender's office did not have spacing concerns, so it was just the solicitor's office that needed that.
Kim, also, this list in priority order and looking at the supply chain problem, for an example, the 911 communications, I got a feeling that's really important to get on order and get moving on it. Would it make, with the money we've got left over with this tranche, I think we've got so many things in front of that, we would have to wait till we get the second tranche to begin really spending that money possibly. Am I reading this wrong?
Yes,
What do y'all
we would.
think? And see, could we, so some of this, just an idea, and I like your list, I like it's prioritized, but could it be prioritized where some of the smaller technical things get prioritized higher, so, and this is a case y'all would make to us, so that we can get them started, as y'all talked about with the AV system in this room. In my opinion, that's going to be nice, but I don't know that it's a necessity. But since everybody's decided they want it, that's fine. And we're going to try to get that done quickly and foremost. But I personally want 911 answering the phones and seeing whatever they need to see a lot quicker than I want to be able to have a better microphone system in this particular arena here. So I think. And again, I'm not fussing at you. I'm just kind of thinking about the fact of what comes first and why. The other thing that is, again, nothing, but Dennis, I would like to see a review of our IT expenditures since I've been on council. We supposedly, I think, bought all laptops or PCs or something for just about everybody in county government. And here we're funding again more. Maybe they've already hit end of life, and if they have, that's fine. We've bought servers that I never understood what the purpose was for. I know that I'm not an IT guy, but I believe IT could maybe explain to us the overall architecture of our system so that we better understand those needs, because those are so important. I don't want to dismiss them, but I would like maybe a.
Yeah, because we just committed like $750,000, didn't we, to buying IT stuff a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
don't know why I'm sure that these things might be necessary, but if I can't understand it, I know my constituents can't understand it.
And believe it or not, I'm agreeing with Alan.
There's always a first time for everything.
But I do understand this is a list, and as Steve said, we've got a few years to do this. I would love to see a top 5 work on that, and have this as a working list to pull from. Because what if something come up in the meantime that becomes an emergency? I don't think we should just vote all of a sudden on this package when it could be changed at some point. So I think we need to look at the top 5, top 7, or whatever, because Dennis, you said we won't have any movement on this for some time, even if we agree on it. Anything that's need to be built is going to be delayed because of the situation we're in. But I don't think we should vote on this as a package right now.
Yeah, so our plan is that we want to get this in front of you. We did want you to see the prioritization because this would be our intent and how we'd focus on this. I do certainly agree that you're right. There are things in here that are smaller packages that we could move up. I think the important part is we're going to get our second payment, the rest of the $9 million, on July 1. So we will have all the money in hand come July 1 to spend through 24 and ultimately 26. But I will say, and we can go in depth, and we have all the breakdown of the information, but that IT one as a second priority, that is switches, firewalls, servers, a lot of it's cybersecurity related. Yes, you've upgraded servers, but also think about these are servers for 911, servers for GIS, servers for all of our systems. So it's a system-wide approach. And so I'll be glad to see if we can schedule a presentation about our IT infrastructure overall to understand that. But I have more detail if you want to see the IT request specifically. But given the cybersecurity issues, where we've come from as an organization and where we're headed, I have put IT as number 2 on here for a reason, because there's so much work, but also because it's lag time. If we don't start ordering these things, if we're not comfortable with this, it will further put us back when we won't have the appropriate firewalls, we won't have the switches to address our cybersecurity for another year or 2 that we're exposed more than we are now. And so that's why that is number 2. But yes, we would like to come back to you on February 28th with maybe 4 or 5 of these and say, let's do these first ones. It could be the camera system, could be some other things, probably the microphones here, and do them in bunches, I guess, if that is more digestible for you all.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we need to continue to fall behind on IT. I think we need to push forward. If we get a year behind or one more year behind, we're going to find ourselves in a situation, in my opinion. I think that everything pertaining to IT should be a priority 1, in my opinion, because we definitely don't need to let everybody go past as far as knowledge of IT. We need to go ahead and do something about it. This is an opportunity to do it. I don't see this as wants. I see this as definite needs, and we need to look at it that way.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the IT as one solid one, not you broke it down into 5 different pieces. I'm looking at it as one because I don't think we can do one without the other. So let's not look at it as the top 5. Let's look at it as one, even with the IT at the Sheriff Department. Because if we're going to do that, we need to do it all together. So that wouldn't be 1 to 5. That, to me, would be 1, focusing on the IT department.
Chair.
You're not disagreeing with me.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I have some
I
comments.
would never disagree with you. Go ahead, Billy.
Well, guys, this is just, we got all this money here that the government's give us, and my personal opinion is whatever we spend this on, we spend it on all of our citizens, not little select groups. Doing this, we're going to leave money in their pockets, is what we're going to do. We're going to leave money in our citizens' pockets because they're not having to use their taxes to pay for these buildings and all this on this list here. They're using, we're using this, so that's money that they're not going to have to spend. So to me, that's money in everybody's pockets. So we need to really look at this close and not get into this penny-ante stuff. Let's worry about what's for the citizens, what's good for them. You know, we're talking about the state's coming back with a lot of funding. They've got millions and billions down there that they have. They're gonna be dealing that out. So they're gonna be money for nonprofits. They're gonna be money for, pretty much everything coming for water and sewer or,
We don't know that
broadband.
yet. I had a meeting today.
It's coming. It will
But we
come.
don't know.
We don't know, you're right, but there are gonna be a lot of money. I don't wanna see us spending all of our money on stuff that we could be getting state money for. So there are a lot of stuff in here that's county stuff that we need to concentrate on, to spend our money on. First of all, when we was talking about this money for this, water and sewer, I'm 100% for it, but I have a problem with Gallo, piping is feeding them. Us paying that, we in competition for industry in this county, and we're feeding water and sewer to a neighboring county. That don't sit well with me. I mean, that is an asset to us, to draw them into our county. If we're gonna provide them water and sewer across the river, they're gonna continue coming over there, because we're a tier 2, county, which we can't offer good tax breaks as they can.
Mr.
They're tier 4.
Councilmember, if I may, I want to make sure that the proposal for the water sewer 500,000 is for a specific project that would be opposite of Quality Drive on the Highway 9 bypass on the other side. So
I
make
just
sure.
seen it on this here.
It'd be, I think, letter D on there. It's called the Hannah Creek, I think, is the one.
I got you. The first one that on the list said Gallo, the oversized.
So I wanted, I wanted to make sure that
we didn't get into.
so I want to make sure we talked about that. That is a list of all the, you can call the water sewer capital improvement plans in the hopper. And so some of those, if you look in the notes on some of those, I think that even the Gallo one, they have some EDA, Economic Development Assistance funding for that. And actually, we cannot use ARPA federal funds with the EDA fund projects. So there's 2 projects on there that generally aren't eligible. But what is ready for expansion and the request in front of you that I handed out separately from the Water Sewer District and the city is for a project that they have already bid out, ready to go, that is serving our Quality Drive industrial park, but the cost went up so much, they had to scale that project back. That would basically go to the proposed detention center site.
Okay.
And so it's highlighted in the red squiggly, if you have the map there. It's highlighted in the red, circled in the red squiggly would be the project line south of the bypass into the proposed detention site. And that would expand the line from 8 inches to 12 inches. And then it would open more opportunity on out. So that would be the specific project. It is an alternate to their project that was over budget, but it's $417,000 plus materials. So that's why the $500,000 request is in the council for that specific project that they could start next month maybe.
I got one other thing. In this Ander Vincent culvert, what is this? That's the first time, and this ain't
That's a
jail
road.
for somebody to
What
speak to
number
this.
is it? What number?
That's the
23.
very last item on the
23.
list. That's a county-owned road that does flood, quite frequently because of the culvert size. I'll let Scott, because I'm not an engineer.
Good afternoon, Councilman and Chairman. Ander Vincent is a little road off just north of Highway 75, just south of Highway 75, going towards Waxhaw. It floods frequently, overtops, and actually the road, it's like the culvert's here and the road sag is down here. So I think the culvert was put in and there's just some weird things out of that. There's probably a 4 or 5 square mile watershed coming through it. It overtops and washes the gravel road out pretty frequently. So there's gravel from every time it's overwashed, probably 100 feet down that creek into the woods. So it just really needs to be upgraded in some way. There are other opportunities to fund water and sewer coming up, we think, but it's sort of like a don't know. So, I'm just saying that is one that's a county road that is a hazard. It actually connects into North Carolina. So it kind of serves the area from the water tank up there by the new high school all the way down to 75.
This
Any
is
other
a dirt
questions?
road, is that correct? This is
Sorry,
a
what?
dirt road?
It's a gravel road. It's a
Gravel road.
county-owned gravel road that washes away pretty frequently. It's typically goes under, what, 12, 18 inches? Pretty frequently.
Okay, we will have additional discussion, when this comes before council. As far as proceeding now, what is council, are they comfortable with a partial list of stuff to come back? Or is there a desire to spend it all at one time? Or just the top projects and request more information? I mean, you can, you don't even, I don't think we would have to have a budget amendment to spend this. This could be
No, just a
spent at any
resolution.
time because the funds are available. So give staff some guidance on what you want.
Personally, I'd like to see maybe most, if not all, the IT stuff put in first, probably to
Check that.
put that as a priority. But at the same time, I think we ought to have we got Scott Hernandez out there, a brilliant guy that can probably give us a lecture tomorrow on what all this is about and what all we've done in the past. That's all I'm looking for, a 30,000-foot view. That's all I've ever asked, is a 30,000-foot view from all the departments, which we don't seem to get very often. And then I do have questions about some of the structure. And what about economic development? That we don't have anything, and I'm not sure what would qualify, but we're talking about doing the air rail park stuff, and
That's
is there
We got
some-
$10 million that is free money.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
don't see that here, that
Yeah.
we're trying to better ourselves in a position to compete economic development in this county. And then one more thing, if the sheriff gets what he wants, he's gonna be freeing up a bunch of laptops. I don't know if those laptops could be coming into where we're asking for laptops here or not. So I just think that's something we need to make sure we keep our eye on. And then one more thing, if we build two buildings kind of together, or one big building with a divider, and it's secure for evidence if that meets the sheriff's needs, and this other is for EMS or fire, one day that evidence is gonna probably have to have both sides. So it might pay us to build together with the idea that one day we'll have to build something else for EMS or fire as the evidence takes over the whole building. I don't know that building separate buildings is gonna be the answer, but just, hey, that's me. And I am gonna look forward to seeing our budget cuts in future fiscal years because of all this money that we're gonna save our citizens.
You won't see that.
Well, that's what we just got through saying earlier, that we're gonna spend this money so our taxpayers won't have to spend it. So that means we should be able to reduce millage and reduce our budget.
Well, you know what, I do, again, agree with what Alan said with the IT being number one, because we know the importance of that department. But I do also, know that, to fund everything on this list right away is really not, being real. I think if Dennis can come back with grouping IT as one, and then come back with some other projects that he's recommending, and keep this list, inactive at this point until we get to the point where they can move up and be voted on.
I think this should be a living document, not a one vote and over.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to remind everybody, this is not free money. This is our tax money that it gave back to us. Yet they gave it to us, told us how to use it. And that's really good. That's what the government does. This is not free money. This is money that is our money, and we pay for it every day when we
Federal
buy
money,
something.
That's right.
Taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
I might have said free money. Sorry about that.
And Mr. Chairman, I've got the consensus to go forward to bring you back something. We'll bring you back a few items on the 28th. But I would like to get a little bit more clarity about water sewer if you're interested in supporting that, because I know that they would want to include that into a project cost. They said they have a project that's
Now,
ready to
that's
go.
one you said they need it
Yeah, the
within a short
quality
period of
drive,
time,
yeah,
right?
I would include that in the first.
They have a project that is shovel-ready, ready to go. They can bid that.
Yeah,
As
that's,
Steve said, I would include it in your
Okay,
recommendation.
I'm gonna make sure I understood that. And then we can have more conversation about if you want to do an outside process for other groups.
you know, we've got a lot of construction going on. What, any of these buildings, is anyone, I mean, Dennis has got them in, you know, priority of the importance of what needs to be done. So at this point, he'll be bringing back his recommendations based on the priorities that you have now then. I mean, unless anyone has any reason otherwise, so, does that
Yeah, thank you,
make
because
sense?
actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, for instance, the coroner, we have got to start engaging architects and stuff on that to get these firm numbers, to see what they are in this current economy. And so, generally getting some of your understanding of where we're headed, I feel comfortable that we can move forward to bring you back better information and start some of the due diligence and engaging some folks to take these building projects.
Clarification, Steve, explain what you're saying now, bring some from the list or the whole list back, what are you saying?
Keep the
I
list.
like Alan's, it's a move, a
Yeah.
living document that we're not gonna be able to do all these buildings the first year. We don't even have land for part of them. I would like to see us take care of 5 or 6.
Okay,
the
that's
first
what I
year.
needed.
Yeah, I'd like to see us approve them and spend all that money we've got right now in the bank before the July 1 comes around. Get those projects identified and approved by us, and then the rest, we can go back and look at this one more time and decide, is that what
I
we
just
really want to do with the
clarification
rest?
on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Okay.
Charlie, that's a great point. We need to be clear.
Mr. Chairman, one thing on there, the IT and the internet at the airport, that's something that's a necessity. That's now. That ain't waiting down the road. This is something that they need out there today. And I
So it would be in our first group. As we said,
I
all
would
IT
think
would be
something like
lumped
that
together.
should be in for, I mean,
We'll
that,
move IT
you ain't got good
projects out.
internet now, you ain't got anything. So, I mean, the airport is really,
Part of the reason why that's a little bit down, I agree with you completely, and I'll bring it forward in a bigger package. But because we're going to talk later on this afternoon about the airport terminal project, how we do that and how the internet syncs up with that is part of the reason why that was pushed down the list a little bit.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, could we possibly get a listing of things that could be covered under the excess we have in capital projects 2? We've got a lot of money there that can be spent. We need to find out what we can spend it on, and these things that we're maybe not gonna fund here, maybe we can fund it under this program. That's a lot of money sitting there, and unless we have other plans for it, and I don't know what it is.
You have teed us up nicely. That is our next topic, and so we will
Okay.
get right into that. Thank you, sir.
And like I say, anyone that thinks of any projects down the road they would like to see funded, please bring them up, and this will be a 2 or 3 year process through 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I want to remind you, I got 10 months and 13 days left, and I want to spend every nickel of this money before I get out of here.
Oh, no comment. All right, does that wrap up our discussion?
Yes, thank you.
All right, discussion of excess funds for capital project sales tax 2.
Are you clear, Dennis? You got a pretty good?
I am clear. We will
Okay,
bring you
Ms. Veronica Thompson.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, members of council, this is kind of an overview of what was spoken about at the retreat with a few updates. Just a reminder, we're about to end our first reimposition of the capital project sales tax 2. It ends on April 30th. And you have on the slide all of the projects that were approved by the voters. Collections to date is now at $68.4 million. We just received $3.6 million a few weeks ago. We are limited what we can spend the excess on. As I stated at the retreat, you have two options, the proviso and the Capital Project Sales Tax Act. The proviso states that you can spend the excess on road improvements, intersection improvements, and pedestrian transportation. And just remember that the provisos is nothing, it's not long-term, it's something that has to be, it's a short-term because it was in the state's budget, so it ends. But we must decide by the time that this capital project sales tax ends, what we're gonna do, if we're gonna do anything.
We can use it for what? Give me that again.
The proviso is a part of the state's budget. So it's a temporary law. It's not a permanent law. So we must decide by the time Capital Project Sales Tax 2 ends, what we're gonna do. But it can only be on those projects that I underlined. Road
That's on April 30th, 2022.
Yes, yes, and it must be approved by an ordinance. So something that we need to really get the ball rolling in March.
And so to clarify, is that we really only have three options if we go the proviso route, and she'll talk about our second option, but is fund road improvements, do the pedestrian transportation or intersection improvements. We only have three things that we can use this excess money on, or roll it into the capital sales tax 3 projects. And as you did hear tonight from the library, there is still some options if we have existing projects that was on 2 that need some additional support or need some wrap-up, we can still use a little bit of funds for that. So if I receive information from the library, I'll be sure to share that with you.
Yeah.
And we can use it for public safety and emergency service communication systems. Does any of that IT, can we cover any of the sheriff stuff with this money? Any of the emergency communication systems?
The public safety and emergency services, that was improving the towers. That had nothing.
So we can't use it for
Yeah.
nothing?
And that's one thing we need to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do according to our ordinance, because, you know, the Department of Revenue, they're watching.
So public safety, can't use it for public safety, though?
No, the intent was, like I said, for improving the communications and radio system.
So now, do we have a list of road improvements or some of these things that we can use the money on?
We're gonna get to that. The important thing to note, this is the section, the Capital Project Sales Tax Act. The excess is everything after we've completed whatever's on Capital Project Sales Tax 2. So, like Mr. Marstall said, if we do have some items with the library that's incomplete, we need to get that. That wouldn't be the excess, that would be the regular money.
And do we have that list yet?
No.
We don't.
He said he was gonna
But
give it
you
to
will
Mr.
have a
Marstall
conversation, okay.
next week.
But the main thing is we want to make sure our projects are complete.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that the library board did a great job, bent over backwards, and stayed within budget. And anything that we need to complete all 3 libraries, this is
Now's the time.
now is when you need to do it, because
And we've got the chairman sitting back there, so I'm sure she got a
yeah,
list.
so I mean,
Could I ask a question about signs for our libraries? Are signs going to be put in front of all of our libraries?
Please do.
Yes, one is ordered for I believe it's already ordered for the main library. It's been identified. And then they had some issues with the soil and things, the Del Webb or the Indian Land one. So I'm sure we'll get a report back for you on that. But yes, they're in motion, and I'll give you the details later.
I saw what looked like a stack of blocks or something in front of the Indian Land Library. I didn't know if it was getting ready for a sign or what, but,
I think they ran into a little snafu on there, but we'll give you an update on that.
I think once we had the open house, I think I may have gone to the chairman and said, where's the sign? We don't have a sign here, so.
So right now, we're estimating, and this is an estimate, $23.4 million, and of course, anything extra that we do to complete all the projects, we'll deduct that from that. So just to reiterate, the proviso for the excess funds must be used on road improvements, intersection improvements, and pedestrian transportation. And on the other side of the slide, there's a recommendation of how we should spend those funds. $7.6 million from a road list that I'm going to go to next. USC Lancaster, Highway 9 pedestrian connections, $1 million. And this USC pedestrian connection, that's off of Capital Projects Sales Tax 3. That was the number 7 on Capital Projects Sales Tax 3.
So it's eligible for the funds.
Yes. And the Lindsay Pettis Greenway Phase 2, that was number 3 off of the Capital Projects Sales Tax 3. So the total is $10.1 million. And here's a list of the roads that we're recommending at 7.6. And I'll let Jeff come up and kind of go through that.
The kind of question for Jeff and Dennis and finance. The road tax fee that is in limbo, I know that we were going to target that for pavement preservation. Will $1 million be enough, or is there more? Are there more projects that could be funded to extend the life of roads that aren't getting paved? Because we don't know what's going to happen with
Correct.
that
Yeah.
fund of
Correct.
money.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with the limbo of the legal rendering about the validation of the road fee, we're going to be at the South Carolina Association of Counties Conference next week and kind of get some more confirmation about how different counties are approaching that. But there is apparently some movement in the legislature that may have a legislative fix for that may give us some more comfort about how we continue to impose and use that fee. But Mr. Cato can talk about how we use that funds, because we use it for the pavement preservation. But our intent is to maintain that until at least through this legislative session to see if there's some legislative.
I was just wondering if that was enough.
And even if we could use that money that we'll have a discussion around, we still can use this $1 million, that's possible to add to that amount.
Yeah, would you mind
Yeah,
addressing
Basically, what that is, that $1 billion number is derived, basically, we're banking on, we froze everything this current fiscal year. We only got started with basically half a year the first year it went up. So basically, that number kind of catches you up for 2 years' worth. We're figuring on what we can actually go out and do in a year. That type of work is really limited to your June, July, August months to get it done and get a lot of the practices. So that number right there really just keeps you going for 2 years. And by all means, if the other frees up, then absolutely you can get back in the game, because like I said, this program was just started before basically we've put it on hold for a little while. And then the other roads, the top ones there are all drawn off of Capital Sales Tax 3 selections, and those selections were all vetted and approved by the Lancaster County Transportation Committee. The possible additions down there are ones that have come up that are county maintained roads, or could possibly be a county maintained road on the last one there. As those have kind of popped up, and realistically through C funds or capital sales, those roads don't really have a chance to have anything done to them more than likely in 10, 15 more years.
So how much is that going to leave after the 7.6 million and the other?
We'll advance the slide there. If you advance the slide, it right there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for the detention. That's the funding for the detention, but it'll leave us. Oh yeah, that's the.
I can foresee, the next capital sales tax, I know we're gonna have to pay for the rest of the jail, but with what will be taken in over the next 7 years, I think the jail will be paid for. And looking ahead, I know there's some money programmed for 521, like $9 or $10 million. That's not a drop in the bucket. So, you know, you're probably looking at a $50 to $60 million additional project next time to, you know, plus the 10 million and anything else that might be let to for 521. I would imagine, I don't know what people will propose then, but the 10 million for 521, I really doubt anything will actually take place in the next few years with that, without combining other money. And I mean, you got 13. Do you want to program that with it or part of it? You know, it's a good problem to have, and this is not free money, like you said. Everybody pays for it, but a lot of this tax money comes from out-of-state, you know, taxpayers that actually, when I was growing up, everybody went to Pinewood to shop. Now they're coming from Pinewood to shop down here. And so, what are you looking for from us right now?
Chair, I got some comments
Go
on
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
We know this detention center, you know, is 47.2, and we got 30.1 million in capital sales tax 3. We're leaving a shortfall of 17.1. We all know this thing's going to exceed a lot more than that time it's built, 50 million plus on that. So I mean, it's just going to grow more and more and more. I think, me personally, we should cover this 17.1 million in this, get that covered. And as you said, there could be some overages. It's going to have to catch the contingency stuff in there, because we don't know what the economy is going to be for the next 7 years. It's been great, probably 7-year funds coming in, but the market could crash next year or whatever, and next few years bad. We ain't going to see that kind of money coming in. And our citizens are expecting that jail to be paid off in this round. I'm telling you, the general public out there didn't realize they wasn't but 30 million of that being paid out of this bond, and leaving a $17 million debt there. I think we need to put that to it, get that 47 million covered. It's going to make the bond and everything go better. Could make the bond cheaper, because we're putting 17 million up front. It's going to free up money to capital sales tax 3 stuff. You know, go ahead and get some stuff started on that. But I really think we need to cover this and get these other projects. Let these other do the roads or whatever we do, you know, with the rest of it.
Well, Mr. Mosteller, I think if we leave that 13 million alone, you've got 5.3 million of this is capital sales tax 3 projects, right? This list, so that's $18 million right there.
I know you're spending it ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, but then that's you're taking off this from capital, so that's.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are
Yeah.
they asking an additional amount of money, or is this just the amount from capital sales tax 3? That's what they're not asking for any additional. Not you, Veronica. I'm talking about the Lindsay Pettis Greenway and the USCO pedestrian crossing.
They're not asking for additional money. This is
Okay,
off of
it's just wanting the money
number
a little ahead
3.
of time. Okay, so you freeing up.
You're freeing up.
$2.5 million.
But I think the intent is to, if you free it up off of 3 to replace it with some roads, some more roads, I think. That's the intent.
But these roads here are covered under 3, right?
Yes.
So that money will be freed up into 3, you know, so.
Well, the road's part of 3, it's pay-go item, what we would target to do is complete the roads on the list, and those would be taken off. So you would be finished, and then if we were to be allotted more funding out of that 13 million that's on 3, we would have to get more roads.
Okay, but that's what I don't wanna come up at the end, when we get into capital sales tax 3 money and we ain't got enough money to cover, we done spend it on extra this or extra that. We need to make sure that detention center is covered. We
Yeah, I
don't
got a
need
feeling
to-
there's gonna be $40 or $50 million left over
It
in
could
7
be,
years.
Steve, but we gotta look at what could happen.
Yeah.
We have to look at both sides of it.
And I think legal is researching and going to give us some options with the detention center, how we should approach doing the detention
The
center.
detention center is gonna cost a lot more than
It is.
what's budgeted for.
So that extras you're talking about is gonna take the
Yeah, well, if you
contingency
take
of that jail.
this extra, then the other they're talking about, it'll go, this money will go back in sales tax 3, so you're gonna have, right, am I looking at this right? That you're gonna have, if you spend this 5.3 million and the other couple of million for the Greenway or whatever, that's just moving it forward, right?
Just moving it forward.
All right, so those funds will be available, and you're gonna have, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of extra money. And then, I think looking at, what's on there, the jail and what else?
It's a number of projects.
I think there's gonna be.
It's at your
It's at
dais.
your,
It's, the list of all the capital sales tax 3 is at your dais there. It's this document that has the,
It's the second page of ordinance 2020, 1673, second and third pages.
So there's 14 projects total.
and so a lot of this is, as you're thinking about it, with the Greenway, the USCL, a lot of those things can move in tandem, so they're just how the funding flows and comes in, but we have the excess funds, so we are gonna advance them, but the money will still be there from the capital sales tax. So I think at the worst case scenario, we're saying, as of now, that it would cost 3.8 million from general fund dollars or whatever for the detention center, or if there's excess money from 3, that could be rolled to take care of the detention center. So by using this plan that we have right now, is we're saying for a $47 million detention center, that 13 million we're suggesting carry over from excess 2 to the detention center, as well as the 30 million from excess, or from sales tax 3. And so I think we have your concern covered, council member, about the
I don't
funding.
think there's gonna be any problem, and, you know, I know, Brian has mentioned, programming, possibly programming some more money for 521 for engineering or something, so, I know he's not here, and, he'll probably have comments on that at the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I think the Greenway is wonderful here, and I think we got a plan to cover the city. But eventually, in this county, we will have 102 miles of greenways and trails once they're completed throughout this county. To my knowledge, we do not have a plan to keep them up. We had one problem in Walnut Creek, cost the county something like $30,000 to fix it. On down the road, years to come, when all these trails, these walking trails, greenways are put together, there's got to be a plan to take care of them, to maintain them, because this is like going from Columbia and back. That's how many trails we'll have in this county. Somebody's got to pay for it. And I think we need a good plan put together so that we don't, all of a sudden, we start shutting down walkways, trailways, and greenways because we don't have the money to fix them. I think it's wrong. We got a chance now to do something about it, and we should do it. But that is a lot of trails, and your developers, once they put them in a development, they are free to go. Yeah, homeowner association or property owner association can or cannot take them. some do take them and some won't take them. So you're looking at tremendous expense on down the road for Lancaster County if we're not careful and don't plan ahead.
Let me ask a question how this will work. On the detention center, we got 30,133 whatever thousand program. If we do have the 13 million, that'll be dedicated to go ahead and go to the, we'll spend that before we start drawing on the 30, is that how that works?
So our bond counsel has been in communications with Brian Urick, who y'all are familiar with from Compass Municipal Advisors. Brian was unavailable in the last week or so, but the plan is to have a meeting with Brian, Ms. Heiser, and the administrator and myself to review some prospective payment schedules, whether it would, in other words, whether it would make more sense to bond the amounts, make a large prepayment, just looking at various funding scenarios. Yes.
Y'all will make the recommendation.
Correct. We're looking into that.
I know, does anyone else have any other recommendations?
One other thing, with this 13 million you're talking about, we're rolling into the detention center, can we use that to buy the land? Isn't that figured in that number? I think there's some land in that, so we can go ahead and use that money for that.
It'll go toward the cost, and I'm glad we have a growing revenue base, because I got a feeling that the EMS station, everything's going to cost more than what's on here, and it's a lot more, because these are based on figures a couple of years ago. You're probably up 25. I wouldn't doubt if you're not up 25% cost on a lot of these items.
So, Mr. Chairman, our next steps coming forward on you, on this one, is we do have to stipulate by ordinance, that we will utilize the excess funds under the proviso, which is just for the roads, the pedestrian, or the intersection. We've identified the pedestrian, USCL, and the greenway, as well as the road list that you just reviewed. So we'll bring that to you as an ordinance, the 28th February meeting. So that will be the next step in this, and then we'll work on getting the bond council meeting to determine the funding strategy for the detention center.
Rolling over.
Yeah.
Because the detention center was going to also included a magistrate's office.
Yes.
Is that correct? It'll all be together. All right? Everybody good?
Y'all beat that horse so bad, I don't want to say a word about it.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. All right, workforce overview, Ms. Lisa Robinson.
Mr. Chairman, before Ms. Robinson comes up, I wanted to actually recognize her, as well as Kayla Vaughn, our public information officer, marketing coordinator, who's also in our HR department, as we were recognizing folks who helped during the storm in January. I do want to highlight that it was Ms. Vaughn as our PIO who did a lot of the communications about the status of the hours for convenience sites. We had some delayed openings for our city or county facilities. She's communicating that on Facebook, on all of our social media, and so she was working after hours with me, communicating back and forth on the status of our operations, as well as Ms. Robinson communicating with our workforce about our operational hours. So I want to recognize Lisa and Kayla for their works, and we will also have a certificate of a thumbs up for that work. As we transition into this presentation with Ms. Robinson, some of this information you heard, but I really want to use our workshops as information for you as council members that we may not talk about on a regular basis. And as we think about the budget, part of that is to do analysis of our current workforce. What is our recruitment and retention strategy going forward is what I'm thinking about. And so I asked our HR folks to put together some numbers to help me understand kind of where we may have some deficiencies in our efforts for retention and recruitment. And I wanted you to see those numbers as well. And so I thank the HR staff and Ms. Robinson for putting this together, and I'll turn it over to her.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I am here to talk about the county's greatest assets, our employees. We have about 529 full-time employees.
Can you pull that mic down closer? Thank you.
We have about 529 full-time, non-exempt and exempt employees. 24 of those are working retirees. We've got 191 part-time employees, with 19 of those being working retirees, and we have almost 500 election workers on our payroll. The average age of our employees is 45, and the average tenure is 8 years. Average hourly rate for just our non-exempt hourly employees is $23.94. As you can see from this slide, the majority of our employees have been here 10 years or less. We have 14 employees who have been here more than 28 years. We have some very dedicated employees. We have one employee who is 78 years old. He is an equipment operator with our Public Works Department. We have 2 employees who have been with us more than 48 years. One is with EMS and the other is with the library. The next slide is just labor trends, unemployment rates for the nation, the state, and Lancaster County. Companies are finding it extremely difficult to hire new employees. While we face the highest quits rate in decades, 4.5 million workers quit their jobs in November alone, and they're all struggling to fill a near record of 11 million openings while also holding on to existing employees. Some additional labor trends. Employers are calling this the Great Resignation since the pandemic began. All of us are finding it hard to fill positions. 58% of the workforce are choosing to work at home permanently. 39% are favoring a hybrid environment, working at home some and in the office some. Employees are finding that remote workers are more productive, but unfortunately, all workers can't work remote. Employees are wanting flexibility and more of a work-life balance. And with the Great Resignation, the applicants seem to have the power and are less willing to settle for lower pay and poor working conditions. Because of the increased cost of living, applicants are demanding higher pay levels. Our countywide turnover, it is better in the last few years. In fiscal year 19, we had high turnover in our auditor's office. We had a good many retirements. Sheriff's Office had high turnover, and so did Public Safety Communications. And then to break down some of our divisions, General Services, in fiscal year 21, IT lost half their staff, and Parks and Rec lost about 5 of their full-time employees in fiscal year 19. Public Safety lost about 9 employees in fiscal year 19, and the detention center lost about 9 each year for the last 3 years. Our department vacancies, this has changed a little bit, but as of February 1st, we had about 53 vacancies with a vacancy rate of 10.6%. Some positions that we find it difficult to fill are mechanics because of the competition with pay in the area. IT positions are hard to fill as well because of pay. Planners and building inspectors, there's not many people in that field anymore, so it's hard to fill those vacancies with skilled, trained applicants. Turnover and vacancy. COVID concerns are still the leading reason that employees are considering leaving. Staff burnout leads to turnover and absences. Public sector employees are worn down by the outwork demands of the pandemic still that doesn't seem to be going away. And the private sector is hungry for help, and they can give employees more options and reasons to switch jobs. Recruitment and retention has been tough for all of our departments. According to recent research, 52% of state and local public sector workers are considering leaving their jobs for different reasons, retiring, or just leaving the workplace altogether. Burnout and inadequate pay are two reasons employees say they're leaving, and baby boomers are at retirement age. This next slide talks about our vacation pay. Our current policy, we roll over 240 vacation hours. As of that first check in January, it rolls back to 240, and you lose any annual leave hours over 240. What this shows in the last 3 years, we have, in 2019, we have another caveat to our policy that allows employees to roll over 40 additional hours if they've had unusual circumstances throughout the year. In 2019, we had 6 employees roll over 464 hours above their 240. 4 of those were unusual circumstances and got to roll over their entire balance. In 2020, COVID hit. Nobody could be off. Nobody could go anywhere, so we had a lot of excess vacation hours, so we allowed employees to roll over all of their annual leave hours. And then even in 2021, we dropped it back to 320, so everybody dropped back to 320 the first check in January. We still had 16 employees over that 320 for staffing issues and COVID and all kind of other reasons that they just couldn't take time off that we allowed to roll their time over. And again, that creates staff burnout and leads to absences and illnesses. Our applications. We have taken more applications in 2021. We've implemented the NeoGov system. We fully implemented the Insight component of that, which has made our applications. We've posted 61 jobs in 2021, and we took in more applications than we have in the last few years. It's more easy to access, and we'll talk about that a little more. NeoGov, we're able to have more accurate information about our applicants and their qualifications and to see which ones meet the requirements of the jobs. It gives the department heads more different things to be able to screen them and go through and put them in categories. It monitors and boosts job postings to increase exposure and reach candidates. All of our jobs are posted on governmentjobs.com, and then there's 24 other sites that they could possibly be on, and what we understand is NeoGov these other companies sweep the NeoGov site, and if there's applicants looking for jobs that are on our site, then they pull them into theirs. So I think we're finding more skilled applicants for our positions with NeoGov. Governmentjobs.com is 177 more likely to deliver more qualified applicants than Indeed and 67% more likely than LinkedIn. It's designed for those on the go, the millennials and the Gen Zs. And we've also now have the onboarding process, or the onboarding component too, that will link with Insight and help us to get our new hires in here a little more quickly. And then to recap a little bit about the retreat, some information that you received at the retreat. We proposed a $12 an hour minimum pay for all county employees as a recruitment retention strategy. This would impact 156 of our part-time positions. 103 of those are seasonal part-time positions, and 5 would be full-time positions. The plan would be to go ahead to advertise now pretty much for the summer camps and seasonal employees, and that would be implemented the first check in June. This will cause some pay compression issues between the $12 and $15 an hour employees, and those adjustments will be looked at with fiscal year 23 budget. To retain our current employees, the proposed plan is to increase all employees who are making below the minimum and their pay grades to the minimum rates based on the study. This would impact 210 employees, and the range would be from 4 cents to 15,500. And then the total cost right now is $791,000, and then I've got the sheriff's office amount separate. We will give Kim a final total on the 28th from any changes that we've had since we did all this. let's see, there's 10 to 15 positions that would need to be evaluated for potential movement to their midpoint of the pay ranges to address recruitment and retention. That would be an additional $125,000. Desired benefits that we're seeing, studies show that employees are looking for benefits that allow them to achieve an ideal work-life balance. Some put options of flexible hours over salary. Applicants looked at a benefit package as communicating the values of the business and it would communicate the essential values of our county. Benefit offerings speak directly to what leadership deems important, and meaningful benefits not only attract new talent to the county, but will help keep our current employees from looking to greener pastures. Some desired benefits would be remote work, tuition reimbursement, 401k match, a wellness center, and possibly a buyback system with our vacation pay. So that is our workforce in a nutshell.
Mr. Chair, I've got some.
Go ahead.
Comments. Lisa, under these desired benefits, are those some of the benefits we would like to offer?
Yes, ma'am.
We do retirement, not 401k?
We do 401k, but we don't
But you don't
match the,
match it.
that's right.
So what are you proposing, a percentage, or how you?
We haven't really looked at any of that yet. That's just something that came up in the research that I did, that was something that applicants were looking for when they were job searching.
And under the department vacancies, we've got 53 at this time. Is this using an average in any given year, or is this high or low?
That's about an average. It's probably a little bit high from the previous years. Now, the Sheriff's Office Detention Center, those are about the same all the time.
And these are all skilled jobs, pretty much?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's it for me right now.
Questions?
I got a few
comments?
questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Plattman.
Mr. Marstall, how long have you been working here now?
4 months.
4 months. And so we're looking at $900 and something thousand in special pay adjustments without even addressing a cost of living and things of that nature. Just a general question, since the last time this study that y'all are basing this on was done, has anybody been doing any extra validating of that study by looking at other counties and what they do?
Part of the process, because we've had different employee classifications, job positions come up where we wanted to evaluate the pay for specific positions. And so we've gone back to that study. We've also done some additional work at some other position-specific employers to look at some of those. But really, we've stuck with the study, and we've ended up sticking pretty close to that study using some of the comparable points, such as neighboring counties, that were included in that study.
How many people have we lost to Mecklenburg and Charlotte? Y'all want to compare to them? Obviously, they're way out of our league, just like we could compare to Greenville, who's way out of our league, just as we could compare to Charleston, who's way out of our league. So if we're going to compare to these way out of our league, how many have we lost to those?
I don't have that number because we don't ask for that data when they leave. So
Y'all
some
should be.
we know and some we shouldn't, and that's something we're working on.
Well, you should be, because that's very important. This study that y'all are trying to use is based on those municipalities, counties that are out of our league. And you can certainly go to the Association of Counties 2022 wage study and compensation study. And before I get too deep in this, I want to say that I would like each of our employees in our workforce to have a better than average compensation package. I mean, I want that. I want them to have better than average. But for that, I want to see them give better than average service to our citizens in return. And I don't think, I mean, you have pointed out in here that somebody's slated for a $15,556 pay raise if we go along with this. Wow, I don't think I've heard of anybody in government getting that kind of pay raise ever, and I certainly want to see which position that is to understand why that person would even be here working if they were that much underpaid at this point.
It is more than one position. We've got some in fire service, some in the auditor's office, emergency management, and the library.
Making a $15,000 pay
That would
raises?
be, are that far below their minimum and have been here. The study suggests that anybody 7 years or over should be at their midpoint.
Where does that come from? The study?
Yes, sir.
Where does the study base that from?
Well, they based it on all the criteria that we asked for at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, I have never heard that in my entire career, that somebody just deserves to be at the midpoint of a pay band. Now, is the pay band gonna stay stagnant? So when we give cost of livings, they'll inch up to get to that midpoint? Is that the theory?
Yes, sir. Totally implement it.
7 years later, the beginning now becomes worthless because we never increased the minimum over 7 years.
We do increase the minimum. We increase the whole chart by the CPI every year, so when we give these minimums in July, we're already gonna be about 5% below, because 2021, the CPI was like 4.79%, which will move our pay grades. So when
We haven't moved it yet since the study.
we move it every year by the CPI.
So you're
It's
right.
just been extremely low.
Council hasn't approved that.
As part of the budget, yeah, so in prior budgets, my understanding is we do have our pay scale that we reference, so we know what to bring people in. So when we bring in people this year at the minimum of the pay scale, we are looking at that study and not paying them what was identified 5 years ago from the study. So yes, we have been using that as our way to determine the position minimum salary to hire people in. But I'll say about the 7-year, in most compensation classification systems, from MGT that we use, but other ones that I'm familiar with, part of the HR foundation, I guess, of any compensation system is to get people 7 years into their work life with the employer to around that midpoint. So that's a common HR
Through what kind of pay raise?
through well, it depends what system you use, but through a system that moves up
What
with
are we
which moves up with CPI is part of it.
But then you move the whole pay band so they stayed in the same place, which we did not approve, by the way, as a council. We just approved those pay bands and what was the beginning and the ending. We never approved moving those pay bands in subsequent years.
Part of that is the COLA, so you also move things with the COLA, is how you keep up. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
we
the cost of
moved,
living.
we gave pay raises and COLAs for the employees, but we did not change our compensation policy.
The cost of living policy?
When we approved our pay raises, we gave pay raises to the employees. We did not address the compensation
Cost
policy.
of living.
No, the compensation policy, which states, here are our pay bands, here's the beginning of each pay band, here's the top. So all I'm getting at is, if all we did was cost of livings, and if the pay bands did move, y'all moved them, then the person that started off at the beginning is still at the beginning. How does he move to the midpoint in 7 years? And what's the
Alan, one second here. I think you're above, this discussion is above some people's level of understanding. I think should be a administrative council discussion, so when we do discuss it, everybody be on the same page, because you lost me.
When do you want to discuss it then?
I mean, it could be for the recommendation is what I'm saying. But I don't think Lisa's the one that can answer these questions, because Lisa's gonna follow policy.
I'm asking Dennis. I'm not asking Lisa, because I know again, Lisa's gonna do what Dennis directs her to do, and
But
that's
you were
fine.
directing them at her and not him.
Okay. Well, forgive me for that, because again, he works for us. And then the other part is, if you look at our county's population, the 6 below us then the 6 with populations right above us, so a 13-county cohort, and you divide our wages by the number of people that we have, we spend $331 per citizen toward our wages for our employees. Some counties are as low as $214, $166, $289. Georgetown happens to be $456. We are pretty high up in the way of how much we spend. If we look at our general fund budget as divided by population, we are $729 that our citizens, each citizen in this county spends for our general fund budget. The next one is Oconee at $723, Beaufort at $720, and then it becomes $447, $426, $494, $364. And again, I want our employees to make better than average, and in return, I want better than average customer service for our employees. But based on these numbers for the Association of Counties, we might be just a little bit bloated here. And I don't know what the answer is. So as we...
Go ahead, Ms. McGriff.
I don't understand. I think I quite understand where you're coming from, and I do think that some of this needs to be cleared up. But I don't think this is the place to do it. I think it should be a workshop or whatever we're gonna talk about, the salary scale.
Oh, I thought this was a workshop.
No, I'm talking about designated just for that, because
I'm fine with that.
you're referring to information that not in front of me, not in front of any of the rest of us. So if we're gonna have this discussion, we all need to be looking at the same thing. $12 for our employees, I fully support that, and I wish we could do more because, they've been in the mud so long. So whichever direction we can go in to pay our employees more, the better. And if we could provide the council with some of that information that you just shared with us, Alan, maybe we'll all be in a position where we can understand where you're coming from. And I know we've talked about this, but I don't have anything to look at when you were reading off all those numbers. Okay?
All right, so if you want to continue this conversation next month's workshop,
Well, now, Ms. McGriff, we'll do it next month. She wants to do it in a special one.
I want to do it where we're looking at the
no,
same
make your data available to staff so they can analyze, what you're saying and what the council can, and we will add it back on the agenda. But I agree with Ms. McGriff if you make everything available, because I'm a one-person operation and HR is not my thing. Go ahead, Ms. Robinson. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Marcel?
No, that wraps up. I just wanted you all to see kind of what we're seeing about just the composition of our workforce, kind of what we're looking at with recruitment, retention. But also it is about how do we have a pay structure that does have the strategy to bring people in at competitive wages, but then how can we also have a system that moves people through the pay scale? And so figuring out what that is with the cost of living adjustment, CPI, whatever it may be. And so that's why we want to get this information out as our first budget workshop today to kind of let you know where we're headed, to give you some thoughts on that. But I do think, again, as we said, this pay study, I think, is important. What I recognized in my first 4 months here is that we've had this pay study out there. It may have some flaws. It may not have ideal comparisons. There are some things I wished I would have seen differently in that pay study. But it's what we have, and it's what I've told the staff, that I don't see doing another pay study as a benefit at this point in time. I'd welcome an opportunity to do another pay study, but after we make movement from the information that we have at hand through the existing MGT study. And so I would welcome doing a periodic pay study every 2-3 years, whatever it may be, but I do think that the MGT study has enough comparisons and enough information by position, by classification, that it's usable. And so I would rather defer to that, what we have in hand, and go forward with that, and that's how we came up with our numbers for the pay recommendation that I looked to advance, barring more conversation with council members, for getting everyone at least to the minimum of that pay study as part of the FY '23 budget.
All right, well, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll try to wrap this thing up by 4 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment before Ms. Lisa sits down? I've been with the county many years. I have never been to her. She did not get the information I asked for and did it with a smile on her face. So Lisa, I thank you for that, dear. You've made it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what the problem is.
Ken, it's not a good day.
What's going on?
He's leaving.
Where?
He's going into the transfer portal, see what somebody will offer him.
Good gracious. I got a
Could live without
45th
hearing
this
that.
year.
Huh?
I got a 45th this year. How about you?
I think it's 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So you're 79,
78.
78. So that's only 1 year left.
Oh, 1 year?
Yeah,
Okay.
one more year.
Yeah.
You know what?
We ain't too far from Gold Corps.
No. I say we're already there.
Yeah. More like Gray Corps.
I know.
Oh,
Well, that's not good news there.
no.
But since we'll be celebrating while the game's going on, we may
Yeah.
not even
Might not even notice.
Oh, man. I'll be heading from here to Myrtle Beach.
Woo, that's a drive.
I know. It's the South Carolina Aviation Association Conference. Starts today. And the evening's open. And so to hold me down. Good to see you, man. So they have open night tonight. So we take our own staff to dinner. And we've had various things happen with people. The lady's organized the whole thing. She can't make it. My business partner now maybe can't make it. So that means I got to be there. And it starts at 7 o'clock. So I've got to do the introduction.
You got to do this real quick.
Well, you know what? I got a plan B. If this thing goes over, I'm gonna call one of these young bucks. I'm gonna say, buddy, it's time to step up to the plate.
Well, you need a corporate jet. It could just be sitting at the airport. 30 minutes, you could be down there.
And be nice. Be nice. That won't happen while I'm working there.
Let me see, Kim, what's
Oh,
up?
sure. Hey, Kim.
Hey, how are you, Ken?
Fine. You?
Good.
Good.
You ready for your presentation here?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, I think they're excited to talk to you anyway, so,
I hope so.
yeah. Let's see this pretty.
We finally got the cost in from the architects. Remember you mentioned that the other day?
Uh-huh.
And it's high. It's higher.
Really, how much?
I haven't done a percent increase, but with that new money from the bill money, bipartisan research loss, it's going to offset a whole lot of that. We were hoping to, there, trying to get the architects to give us a price, and they finally did. So, we're talking about using that bipartisan money right here. And we've already conveyed that to the FAA, but the local share is this, based on our estimate now. And that was a little over 2.5, so whatever that difference is.
So this is the local here?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an estimate. So one of the things I mentioned down here, I will mention it today, is there is a way that we can reduce this amount. And one of the ways is we can use I think you may have even asked the questions, or maybe I'm getting things confused.
That was in a meeting with me. I think Dennis asked when I was there.
So you can use that $150,000 every year to reimburse yourself forever until you completely reimburse yourself and you only have 5% in the project. That would take quite a while, but it can. But that money is right now being planned in the hangar. That's why I say you can reduce it using this, reimbursing yourself. You still have to self-fund a lot, but you can offset that over time. But that money right now, unless somebody tells me different, is being planned for the hangar. And then there's this other thing that, here. Notice of funding opportunity that we're waiting for a terminal building project that was in that bipartisan infrastructure law. So that's a possible source, but until they provide information on that, folks, we don't know what the parameters are, we don't know our chances of competing for it. There will be a competition.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
So.
Okay, well.
The other thing that's not included in here, this is construction. So they're construction phase services. But we've been focusing on design right now because we got to bid this project on the 28th of February, which is 12 days from today.
So that's potentially got to go up.
Go up. Now some of that, we've got to figure out how can be spread with the FAA. I think we can.
How about 1 second?
Is that the queen? Is that the queen?
Here's the queen.
All three of them.
I got her on lockdown.
All three of them. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Whatever Ken wants, give it to me.
Oh, Lord.
We're just going over some numbers. You're on your own.
Veronica, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. Doing well, thank you.
I tell you, the airport's gonna be changing over the next few years, isn't
It
it?
appears that way.
Yes.
We'll have to see how it all shakes out, money-wise. It always boils down to money.
You know they're pro airports, so
I'll do you this.
Well, thank you. Charlotte Towers calling and wanting to know what he's gonna do about it, so, yeah, but it was not, there weren't any, injuries as far as I know. I don't think, no fatalities, it didn't sound like. So what happened was the nose gear on landing collapsed.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Single engine. Right. But it's on the runway, see, it needs to be off that runway. The runway's closed down until they do it. So I told him, I said, I don't think everybody would understand. I will, sure will. Yes, sir, appreciate you too. Thank you.
Glad to see if that's what it's worth.
You get that answer, thank you. You gave that to me, thank you. And actually, Ms. McGriff, that was on there before we saw it.
Yes, sir. I'd like to call this workshop back to order. Hopefully, we'll be out of here. We're gonna try our best by 4 o'clock. Airport terminal replacement and lighting vault relocation, Mr. Ken Holt.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have Mr. Ken Holt come up and talk about the design progress with the terminal. It's been a conversation I know with council. We now have some aggressive FAA timelines to meet to get some grant funding. But also, while we're talking about the terminal, really one of the drivers behind this is a lighting vault, which is a relocation. And so I'll have Mr. Holt come up and give a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall, and Chairman and members of council. Thank you for your time. It's been exciting here the last few months. As Dennis alluded to, the FAA got us a grant agreement, or got the county a grant agreement about 2 months later than normal. And then that was back in October, September, October. And then they ended up moving up the date for the application by a month. So they took 3 months out of our schedule to get this whole thing designed and bid, because we have to have a bid in hand to submit a grant application. So I met with our troops mid-November, as soon as we got all that out of the way, all the administrative duties. And I told them, I unveiled our schedule. And I said, now, yes, in our scope, we say it's a 7-month schedule. But this is the new and improved schedule. It's, we're going to do 7 months of work in 3 months. And the only way that we're going to get it done is you're going to have to clear your desk. You're going to have to make this a top priority, even if it means that you don't go to your family over Thanksgiving or Christmas. And after I made that comment, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. But they have worked diligently, I tell you. And we go in this slideshow here, you'll see some of the progress we've made. So the overall project, the components of the project consist of a new terminal building, a lighting vault, a generator to power the whole airport. Of course, that'd be emergency generator. And then the associated parking and circulation infrastructure, all that composes this project. And this is a layout of what it's going to look like, shown here. And you can see those components. I don't know if you can see them on your screens there or the hard copy you have, but we're showing the main terminal there. You'll see over to the right-hand side, we actually show those hangars. That's for the future. But it gives you a feel for where the terminal building will be in location to the future hangars. So that the future hangars are not a part of this project. The blue you see up there is the circulation and parking associated with the new terminal building. To the left of the new terminal building, or I should say in between the new terminal and the existing terminal, is the lighting vault and generator. And then as a part of this project, once the new terminal is constructed and occupied, then we would demolish the old terminal. That's the plan. So, as I said, we've been busy designing this project. We finished 60%, which is a milestone for us as designers. 60% of design was completed about a month ago. Still, and we've submitted drawings to the FAA and to the state, our plans and specifications, 60% level for their review and comment. And we're in the process of finishing it to final design plans. And it looks like we're on schedule, which is to submit to Lancaster County, the FAA, and the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission the final drawings and specifications this coming Monday. So in order for us to provide you some of these computer-generated renderings, we'd have to be pretty far along. So let me just share a few with you. This is the proposed terminal as you would see it from the land side, and that's a porte-cochere over there to keep people out of the weather when they're coming to drop off or pick up. And then from the air side, that's what you would see when you fly in and park in front of your new terminal. Very welcoming view of the terminal building. And then you have your staff in there that have a good view, good visibility of what's going on the airfield. The floor plan is seen here. I know I can tell you I can't see it, but it's, I don't know if you can, but we have various components within that terminal. We have, of course, an office for your airport manager. We have an area for line crew. So this is for growth. This is for the future. Right now you have no line crew. You have one person there, and that's Paul. And then we have office in case this airport grows as we think it will. You'll need some additional staff, so we have an office, a smaller office close to Paul's, and a small conference room. We also have a boardroom that can accommodate a good number of people. We have a waiting area for passengers either getting ready to depart or family members waiting for their friends and family to arrive. We have a pilot's lounge, pilot's restroom, and a coffee bar and snack area that can be accessed after hours, which is based on our research. That's pretty typical at other airports that have built terminal buildings recently. And it also provides some security measures for the rest of your airport that it's, or excuse me, the rest of your terminal building is not available to the pilots after that, after hours. As you go down and you enter the airport from either side, right in the middle you'll have a snack bar and a coffee bar, as well as across from that you'll have a fireplace with a TV. And that's something we saw at an airport in Anderson that everybody raved about. It's very, very nice. Nice touch. Creates nice ambiance, but it also provides warmth if anybody's a little chilly in the wintertime. There's a kitchen in this building as well with industrial grade ice maker and other things that are needed to accommodate the pilots, particularly the corporate pilots that have a lot of passengers on board, and of course public restrooms. And I think I've touched on everything there. So that's our floor plan. The internal space is just under 5,200 square feet. And to put that in perspective, your existing terminal is just under 2,300 feet. So this building will more than double the size of what you have now. Again, this was designed and it was planned not based on what you need now, which you need something bigger than what you have, but also something to grow into, so that this building will last you 20, 30 years into the future. Some other renderings that you see, that's the main corridor. Going down through the airport, you're looking out at the air side here. To the left, where you see those two dark chairs, that's where the fireplace is, and to the right is the snack bar and coffee bar. This is the waiting area. The doors you see in the back, you're looking at land side, so your waiting area is up front, looking out through the windows on the air side. This is the airport manager's office. As I said, it gives a good view of what's going on out at the airfield, which is important. And the boardroom that I said would accommodate quite a number of people. You know, I just realized I was remiss when I saw the airport manager's office. As some of you may have noticed, Paul Moses was here at the beginning of this meeting, and he's not now. So there was an accident at the airport, but it wasn't a bad accident from what I understand. I don't think anybody was hurt. There were no fatalities. But basically what happened is the nose gear collapsed on landing, and the airplane ended up halfway on the runway and halfway off. And so Charlotte Towers calling him, wanting to know what he's going to do about it, because as long as that plane's on the runway, the airport shut down. So he sends his apologies for leaving, but felt like that it was something he needed to handle right away.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry for not telling you that at the very beginning. Back to the presentation, you've got a nice boardroom here. I know that Ms. McGriff was part of our terminal area study group, and she witnessed a lot of this firsthand, and having a nice big boardroom is a good thing to have for various reasons, but for airport business in particular. I know I mentioned a smaller conference room that's adjacent to this boardroom, and that would be if, let's say, we have an economic development opportunity, they fly into the airport, this would be a nice place for them to meet. If you got a big group of people and they need to have a little private conversation, they can go into the small conference room. So,
Ken?
Yes, ma'am.
I see everything on this floor plan, but the office you promised me.
Oh, let me back up. Yes.
Get your pilot's license, I'll let you have office.
He
Got you
promised.
got you a pillow and a blanket there at the fireplace. We'll add that to the plans.
But, you know, everything Ken said is true. We put a lot of time and study in this design for the terminal. We visited other airports and to look at what they was offering for their county, but I think this is going to be really a terminal that people are going to want to come and see and look at.
Thank you.
And appreciate all
Thank you.
what you and Paul do, Ken.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. We appreciate the opportunity.
You know, the only thing that I would make note of is the wings on this terminal, the roofs are sloping inward.
Right.
So they're creating an unnecessary valley. I would think that we would like to slope them back that way. Maybe I'm just too linear and not clear enough, but just an observation.
You gotta look like an airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where the roof is.
Thank you for that observation.
Mr. Holt, over the years, I've got to know you well. I know what your interest is in our airport and what you have done for us over the years. Everything we've got is because you put your hand on it and helped us out. And this is icing on the cake, in my opinion. I know our new administrator, he is all for our airport. He sees the fact that that is an asset, tremendous asset to our county. But we are today because of you, Ken, and thank you so much. I appreciate it so much, working with you over the years, and most of all, appreciate your friendship.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate those kind remarks. It's been truly our pleasure to serve you. It really is, and me personally. Thank you. So noted. I'm gonna get you back an answer on that. I'm sure they have a way of, handling that, but it is, it does appear to be, to maybe us as problematic, but I've seen other airports with this, and. They do high schools that way too, but I just sit there and say, that's just gonna be a. Yeah. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Dennis, are you gonna go into the, funding, into the future schedule?
Mr. Holt's going to do the last two slides, which includes that, and so we will, that's the important part that I want to make sure we talk about.
About that.
Thank you. So here's our schedule. What's driving this schedule is that middle item, which is the grant application. Deadline is April the 11th. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have to have bids in hand and evaluated to make sure that whoever we're recommending to Lancaster County is a responsive bidder, lowest responsive bidder. Checking out the references and everything else, doing everything we can to make sure we're getting a good contractor. So when you back up from that, we really need to bid this project February the 28th, so that's 12 days from now. We will open bids on March the 31st, so that basically gives us 10 days to go through all this, make a recommendation to the county, and then in the process, prepare the grant application package, get it signed and into the FAA by April the 11th. So that's our plan, and I wanted you to understand the bidding, what's driving that is that April the 11th deadline. If we miss that, I've asked the FAA, is there any latitude whatsoever, and they said, wait another year if you miss April the 11th. So we got to make April the 11th, unless y'all don't want to. But that's our plans. That's how we've been proceeding forward on that basis. The next two things are, when can you expect to get a grant agreement and execute it, is probably around June or July. And we won't give a notice to proceed to a contractor until we have that grant agreement executed. So when we recommend award to the contractor here very soon, it'll be based on receiving a grant. So you won't be obligated until you get the grant. And then at that point, everybody's ready to go. We issue notice to proceed and begin. We're thinking this project is maybe about a 12-month project from start to finish. So here's the latest estimate, and this is just for construction. We've broken it down into the terminal building, and as you can probably see, there's FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, data access control, fire suppression system, which we coordinated with Scott Hernandez a good bit on that. And that total estimate is $3.385 million. Again, until we bid the project, we don't know what the cost will be, but that's our current estimate. It is higher than we had hoped, but I think a whole lot of that has to do with the broken supply chain, the cost associated with that, the cost of construction materials, particularly steel, and now we have inflation. So I think that's where the bulk of that comes. Site work, which is the parking and circulation, landscaping, and demolishing the existing terminal building, we're estimating that to be right at $1 million. The lighting vault, 207,800, so 207,800. Emergency generator. So we broke this thing down into two things. This was a way to try to get part of this paid for with the FAA. They will only pay for a generator to support the airfield lighting and nav aids. So we're going to actually bid this project with a generator just for that. And then we're going to ask them to also provide one to upsize for the terminal building. Now, our intent is to get one to do the whole thing, but we need some prices as a basis upon which we can submit for 90% federal funding from the FAA. And since they only do the airfield, we'll have that in the bids. Okay? That's the reason we have it broken out that way. So total construction costs, $4.7 million. FAA share, let me direct your attention to what's been highlighted in yellow. The $795,000 is based on the bipartisan infrastructure law, or they refer to it as bill. Lancaster County received $159,000 allocation per year for 5 years. So that's where the $795,000 comes. So the idea is Lancaster County would self-fund that $795,000 and reimburse itself on an annual basis of $159,000 over 5 years. So that's the thought there. The lighting vault is a 90%, so that's, you see the FAA share is 187, and the emergency generator we're showing 90% of what would be for the airfield and 0 for the rest of the airport. South Carolina share, $500,000, which is the maximum amount that they will grant for a terminal project. We'll have no problem maxing that out because it's 90% of the non-federal share, and there is no share from the FAA for the terminal building, leaving the county share at 2.8, almost 2.9 million. And then going down the county share, which is basically taking the total construction cost estimate and subtracting the FAA and state shares. For the site work, it's $210,000. Lighting vault, it's a little over $10,000. The emergency generator, about $4,000, and then for the other part to upsize it is about $60,000. Total, based on the estimate, is 3.17 million is our estimate for the local share total. So we've had a conversation, Paul Moses and myself, with the FAA to express our intentions to, if the county does self-fund $795,000, that $795,000 will be, they will reimburse themselves on an annual basis at $159,000 a year. We did not get any pushback, but I think we need to follow through to make sure that we know exactly what we can use that money for. And this is the reason we don't know is the information to come out of Washington has been slow to come. We've been promised frequently asked questions and answers for about 2 months now, and we still don't have those. I'm being told they're coming soon. The other opportunity to reduce the county share is to use your non-primary entitlement funding, which is $150,000 a year. And again, you could self-fund that the whole portion of this thing that we're showing as the county share and reimburse yourself $150,000 as long as that non-primary entitlement program is available. And it's been available for, 20 years, and there's no reason to expect that it won't be around for a long time to come. So that's a way to reduce the local share. And then there is, in the bipartisan infrastructure law, there is a program that is called the Airport Program Competition. And as everything in the FAA, it's all acronyms. NOFO, if you see that on there, is Notice of Funding Opportunity. Again, they're telling us information will be forthcoming soon. So we want to see what's involved with that competition. Can we effectively compete? I don't know what the parameters are for it. So once we get that information, if we feel like we can compete and we win, then we can reduce the county share there. The only other thing I'd say is we've been focusing on design so much because we've crammed 7 months of design into a 3-month bag. And that is when we submit the grant application, we need to know what the construction phase services are going to cost. And that's up to us to come up with an estimate and get everybody to review it. FAA State, Lancaster County to review it, make sure it looks right, that's basically having somebody handle things like requests for information from the contractor, reviewing shop drawings, construction observation, those kind of things to make sure what you're getting is what you're paying for. So that's eligible for FAA funding. So once we get 100% out the door, we'll start working on that scope and fee. So I don't have that for you right now. I apologize. I feel like that's been a lot all at once, but.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, council members.
Appreciate what you do,
All right,
Ken.
let's move
Appreciate
down.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I want to make sure on this. So my direction going forward is to come up with a funding plan that addresses the county's 3.17 million share of this. And so there's a couple options. I think early on, before I arrived, you had talked potentially taking it out of fund balance. Since this will basically be in the new fiscal year, we can look at it as a bonded project. We'll talk to bond counsel about it. But I just wanted you to know that I'm working on the funding plan and we could do a couple different options on that. But my anticipation is that you all have now seen this general dollar amount. You're comfortable with this dollar amount, about 3.17 for the county share. You see the other funding partners in here, and then I'll work to proceed under that guidance.
Dennis, I've got one question. Veronica might answer this. To my was I remember, we had like $1 million left in that bond from the Public
Good memory, yes, very good memory.
Could we possibly use some of that money?
We could, yeah. So that's part of the funding plan is that we look into the new fiscal year, how to use that bond money, what project. I've got some other projects that we've talked about earlier today, and with the overall budget. So yes, that is definitely in the mix for our funding strategy.
Thank you.
Let's move on down
Thanks, Ken.
to the Bell Ridge Corporate Park Phase 2, Mr. Gilbert.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. As you know, we've talked about over the last several years that probably the #1 economic development issue we're facing is product development and the availability of industrial product. And we've always, or traditionally have talked about the need for industrial buildings because down in Lancaster we have available industrial sites. But what we have not talked about is the demand that we see for industrial sites in the Indian area. And so today I want to present to you an opportunity that I think we have to accommodate that strong demand that is there for industrial sites in the Panhandle. Indian Land is a very highly sought after location by both small and medium-sized manufacturers. Almost every company that we work with, manufacturer, whether they are a company that's located currently in Charlotte or if it's a company from outside the state and they're looking at Lancaster County, they immediately want to take a look at the Indian Land area. That is their first choice. Before Lancaster, before any other area of the county, they always say, what do you have in Indian Land? And it's because of the proximity to the airport and the size of the workforce that is there. The area is currently home to a number of industrial and distribution operations. We have brought in Blythe Company Remby, Kier is here, McClancy, Unique Loom, ClickFold is coming. So all of these companies are in that 16521 corridor at Bales Ridge Corporate Park and McMillan Industrial Park. The area is very strong for manufacturing. Unfortunately, our economic development success that we've had in putting projects at Bales Ridge Corporate Park and at McMillan and other locations on 521 has created an issue for us. So we're running out of land at a very rapid rate. So part of that, again, is due to us being successful in recruiting companies here, but it's also decisions to take some property and either convert it to residential or property that would have been ideally suited for industrial that was already residential, leaving it that, or it's projects like the Exchange project on 521, where we've taken 158 acres and most of that has been converted to mixed use for a residential commercial project, with leaving some for industrial. So there's a variety of reasons why we have lost the land. In total, almost 600 acres have been lost in the past decade that was industrial property. Right now, we currently have just 53 acres of industrial property in the Indian Land area. That includes 26 acres that remain at Bales Ridge Corporate Park and another 27 acres at the Indian Land Technology Park, which was carved out of the Exchange project. So we've been looking at options where we could increase the availability of industrial land in the Indian Land area. And land is a finite commodity. You can't make more land. What you can do, though, is look at your land uses and figure out what makes sense through rezoning properties that would be well suited for industrial development. And those properties have to have really, in my opinion, 4 characteristics. The first would be, do they have good access to highways? Obviously, we're not on an interstate, but the Indian Land area does have the best access to any highways or interstates in the county. So you can get to 77 and you can get to 45 with relatively ease, either using 160 or 521. You also have to have infrastructure in the area. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to do upgrades for lift stations and things like that, but do you have the water lines, the sewer lines? Do you have natural gas lines? Do you have electric? Do you have that infrastructure in the area? The answer is in Indian Land, yes, we do. Does the property have a decent size? Is this a one-shot deal for one company, or can we accommodate multiple businesses that would like to locate at that site? And then lastly, is it compatible with development in the area? Does the surrounding area lend itself well to a property becoming an industrial site? Economic Development believes that the area immediately south of Bales Ridge Corporate Park, which is our most successful business park, really is the location that we should be focused on. Just south of where you see the development along Old Bales Road and the Bales Ridge Corporate Park is 164 acres of land. This land is zoned low-density residential. It is the main roads that serve this location are Old Bales Road, Yarborough Road, Old Yarborough Road, and Possum Hollow. And you can see on the slide there, the area that's all undeveloped, that's the location that we're talking about. Since 2016, discussions have been held with brokers and property owners in this area about selling the property for development as an industrial location. And that has been generally well received by the community. Last year, the property went under contract to a residential developer, a project called Asbury Lane, with hundreds of homes that would have been located on approximately 130 acres. So when we talk about 164, some of that property was not considered part of the Asbury Lane subdivision. That subdivision would require the property to be rezoned from low-density residential to medium-density residential. So while we're saying this site would lend itself well to an industrial park and we would have to rezone it, so would any residential developer as well that was looking to do a project over in this area. We believe it's best suited there for light industrial because of what you see as far as the surrounding properties. So in November of 2021, the Lancaster County Department of Economic Development contracted with Kimley Horn Engineering to analyze the property and look at how this property could be best developed for an industrial park. They looked at the limitations we have in the area with streams, creeks, topography, wetlands, and other factors. And based on this analysis, they came up with the optimal layouts for both lots of road network and how the size of buildings that could be accommodated there and expansion of those buildings. The first plan that they came up with showed us buildings that were very similar in size to what you see with like Blythe Company and Remby and Clickfold. So they were in the 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 square foot range. We wanted to see a second plan that would show bigger facilities than that. We wanted to see one that would show 100,000, 200,000 square feet of industrial space. And that is the plan that you have. You have two plans in front of you. You have the one that shows smaller buildings, and you have one that shows larger buildings. We think this site can accommodate a really good mix of both. The bottom line is this: no matter whether you look at the first plan or the second plan, this area can support 1 million to 1.3 million square feet of new industrial space. So even though we've lost industrial land in recent years, and most recently with the Edwards property on 521 with the exchange, this provides a great opportunity to replace it with probably the best location for light industrial development in the Indian land. And I have here Blake Day and John Kelly, actually from Kimley Horn, who will talk a little bit about what their findings were with this location. Guys.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Have you ever heard the joke about how many engineers it takes to set up an easel properly? It's more than two. So to talk about the site constraints a little bit, the site is currently situated with Bales and Possum Hollow being the two primary access points, along with Yarborough being the third. It essentially creates two primary development areas constrained by lots of natural resources. So we have floodplain on the Yarborough side, and we have a significant amount of streams that run through the Bales side. So with that said, what we tried to do was find the best points of access and then utilizing the existing topography for the roadways, as well as trying to minimize the impacts to those natural resources, knowing that Duke Energy will eventually be running a large easement through this property as well, create development pockets that would fit this industrial type development. So the two configurations of the roadway networks are really very similar, with the difference being whether or not the connection to Possum Hollow is made. And what that allows us to do is really dive in on the various areas, create pockets to where we can kind of plug and play either the smaller side of the market need or the larger market need.
I've looked at a lot of plans, industrial park plans over the years, and I think they've come up with a really good design and layout for the property. I'm partial to the second plan as opposed to the first plan because it gives us bigger buildings, which is what I think we need, but we also can accommodate the smaller ones. So it's really the best of what we're seeing in terms of the companies that are looking at Indian land. So there are some issues, obviously, for consideration. And let's talk about that again, summarizing some of these that I mentioned earlier. Less than 54 acres of light industrial land remain in Indian land at the present time, and the demand among manufacturers to be in Indian land is extremely strong. It is the preferred location for most small to medium-sized manufacturers that begin looking in the county, especially the ones that are coming out of Charlotte. The area south of Bales Ridge Corporal Park just lends itself well to the industrial development. If you look at that zoning map there, the purple area is light industrial. The gray area that is on there, or dark green, is the PDD, which is Bales Ridge, which allows for the light industrial. And then just below it in the yellow is the low-density residential, which is the site that we're talking about. So if you see you rezone that to the purple, which was light industrial, it would be right up against the McMillan Industrial Park area and Bales Ridge. So it makes a lot of sense. The infrastructure is also there to be able to support it. There are options for funding that we can talk about at some point, but, we did approve the GOLD program, so money is available through GOLD. But you also have other sources from EDA money to the ARPA money and other things that are out there. But the next steps are these three. One is to determine, does county council have an interest in rezoning this property for light industrial rather than looking to rezone it for more dense residential development? The second is evaluating the infrastructure costs. So if we answer the first, that yes, this site, you would like to see it developed as an industrial location, then we go about determining what those infrastructure costs are and how those costs would be financed. And then third, identify developers that may want to partner with the county for development of the industrial park. There is one difference with this site that we do not have with any other sites in the county, and that is this location is served by York Electric. And because of that, we do have access to some of the co-op monies and SC Power Team money to help with this. In fact, we've talked to York Electric about the possibility of a spec industrial building at this location because it makes a lot of sense. So those are the three items that I would consider to be the next steps, and be happy to answer any questions you have about this site and moving forward with it for an industrial park.
Jamie, there's 164 acres there, and what is it going to cost the county?
The county is not looking to purchase this property. What our contribution would be working to on the infrastructure costs. So we would leave this as property that would be developed and sold off individually to either a developer that would come in and partner with us and they buy the land, or it would be individual businesses as they come to us and they buy the land. But the county is not, Dennis and I have not talked about the county being in the position to purchase this property.
So infrastructure would be our main, we'd fund that.
Yes, sir. Almost like we do with Bales Ridge Corporate Park. If you remember, we used the money off the HSBC the HSBC office building to fund the bonds that we used to pay for the infrastructure at Bales Ridge.
And what's the time frame you're looking at, hopefully getting this development started? Looking for a developer?
I think if you can greenlight this project and say this is what you would like to see, and we can go about getting the property rezoned, then we're working on this immediately. We've had conversations with developers, and if you don't get developers, we do it on our own, as we've done for most of our existence. So I want to do this immediately. We really have the demand there. I've had projects come through in the last few months that have been looking to build 30,000, 40,000 square foot buildings, and our options are extremely limited.
So we've already had conversations with potential developers, or?
Always conversations.
Yep.
No action, always conversations.
Right, because you do have some lots that are there that aren't part of that residential development, that they're not under contract to that. So there are lots that are out there that are available. And so we've had conversations with them. We've had conversations with developers that have done work in this county about where we could find that next industrial site. And, that's been from Lancaster all the way up to Indian. And so looking in that area, definitely those conversations have been there.
You said this was going to come up for rezoning for residential. Has that happened yet, or is that going to happen in the future?
No, and I think I'll defer to Rox. I don't think it's even gone to Planning Commission yet. Is that correct?
Do you have any thoughts on industrial land generally sells less to the landowner than residential. Is that correct, Jimmy?
I am not, no, I wouldn't say that, because if you look at what the industrial properties are going for in that area, first of all, a lot of these properties that we're talking about have homes on them. So there's already an added value with the home. But industrial property in that area, Bales Ridge Corporate Park, has been going for $80,000 to $100,000 an acre. So I don't think you're getting that for residential. I may be wrong about that, but I don't think you are.
Jamie, I got a question, Mr. Chair. I'm like you. I think this is our last opportunity to get some more industrial park in this area. But that seems to be a niche for some companies to be at this area at the edge of Charlotte and Douglas Airport and So there is a big demand for us to do this, I think, because of that.
Yes, sir.
Because there's no more, once we get this, with you or I don't see any more areas that we could do industrial areas.
That's correct.
And so, Mr. Chairman and council members, we are looking for a little bit of guidance in terms of, to go forward and do the next step of infrastructure, a little bit of clarity, because yes, this is zoned medium density.
This is low density residential.
Low density currently, and there has been a developer who's talked to those property owners who said, hey, I want to put a residential property out there. They haven't advanced anything forward, but the question has been, is this going to stay that zoning, or would it be lowered, or would it be industrial? And so we need a little bit of understanding if your comfort is to say to those residents who are interested in this land becoming industrial and not staying residential. That's kind of some of the clarity we're looking for, because we don't want to get too far on doing some infrastructure discussions, but also to give the neighborhood some conversation to give feedback. If they hear that council's going one way or another, you may get a lot of phone calls that'll help shape your opinion going forward.
And I would also point out that in the Indian Land area in general, there is no way to develop a new industrial property without being near residential. It's impossible. Every site you're going to if there are other sites, are going to be next to residential. But this one makes the most sense because it's next to industrial and it's next to the planned development district that is Bales Ridge. So if you're going to have a location, this would be the one.
You know, I think this is up to the property owner which way he wants to go. And I think council might be receptive to.
If we leave it LDR, there ain't no developer gonna use that land. So
that's correct.
we don't rezone it.
Right, you're just selling off the house to another home buyer. You're not selling it to a developer at that point.
Well, I wish we had a different term rather than light industrial, because the industrial part is what's gonna, all the neighborhoods are gonna hear, and then they're gonna wanna know what's coming in, and they're all gonna talk about the worst case scenario.
All right? Got what you need? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Let's, see if we can wrap this thing up here in a few minutes. Development impact fee study for remaining parts of Lancaster County. Mr. Marstow.
Mr. Chairman and council members, in my tenure here, I think part of our focus is, we talked even during my hiring process about the impacts of growth. And so clearly, as we've all talked at past meetings in our retreat about the different impacts and phases of growth, and the fact that you all have done the impact fee already kind of for the northern part of the county, I've come in and through conversations and knowing what some of the development conversations have been going forward, part of the opportunity to get ahead of growth, I think, is to think about county-wide. And knowing that there are some residential developments in particular that are coming spread throughout the county, I think part of the conversation that you all had when you adopted the last impact fee was you felt pretty comfortable that most of the growth was contained either Highway 5 or even Highway 9 north. But as we see with Roseland and some other things coming up, even people looking in the Kershaw area to do development, my impression is that an opportunity to get ahead of growth is to think about if you want to extend impact fees countywide. And so to do that, we would want to re-engage the Tischler Bice who did the last impact fee, but really there's a time lag on this. As with everything, to get ahead of growth and not get behind growth is to start planning now. And so if you want to move forward, we'd have to do a development impact fee study and also come together with a capital improvement plan for the areas not currently covered by the impact fee. And so that would be a 6 to 9 month process before you would even be asked to adopt an impact fee for the remaining part of the county. If you do want to go the route, what I'm asking today is a little bit of guidance to engage Tischler Bice for an impact fee study for the area not covered by the existing impact fee. I don't have the exact border for you, but you all know basically, I think Highway 9 North, not even touching the city limits, but the northern part of the Panhandle, to then look at the southern part of the county. The last study cost $76,000. I'd imagine a study going forward would be about $60,000 because they can build upon some of the information they already have. It could be less. We haven't fully engaged them, of course, without direction from you. But my overall thought is growth is coming, development's coming countywide. Is now the right time to start to get ahead of that some more, and that is with a fee based, impact fee based upon your current action or recent action that you took. And so just want to throw that out there to see what some of the appetite is to do a study. You would not be asked to do a full impact fee without that information, which could be 9 months down the road.
Question. I wasn't here in December at the committee of the whole meeting. It was presented to council that the staff wanted to possibly get rid of some zoning districts. And then looking at the minutes from that meeting, there were apparently weren't a lot of specifics that were gotten into or discussed. And then looking at the January Planning Commission agenda, it had county recommended doing away with the cluster overlay district. And I'm a little concerned that I would like to see, before we move forward with zoning, I want a little more information on what type of zoning are we looking at. I've got concerns. I'm scared of some form-based flexible zoning. I want all that explained because some of that stuff I've read, I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the possibility of the council shifting power in zoning decisions to staff, and what some of that flexible zoning looks like. I'd kind of like to have a discussion on that in March. I know they're recommending possibly doing away with cluster overlay. Is there any thought on replacing that funding if we don't do impact fees?
So that can replace
everybody wants cluster overlay, and they're paying the development agreement. We're doing
gotcha.
Development agreements.
Thank you, development agreements.
And if y'all don't mind, I want to go to the map and show y'all some stuff about growth in Lancaster County, south of number 5. What is included and is not included in possible impact fees. First of all, down at the river, you know that Catawba Ridge, the whole development is exempt.
Edgewater?
That Edgewater, Catawba Ridge is what the whole master plan is called. And that's a booger that we're going to have to deal with sooner than later because there are people looking at it. I know up here, we've already got a study up in here. I don't disagree with impact fees up here. But south of town, I live in Elgin, down toward Kershaw, we have 2 schools that I went to grammar school in. They're good schools. The new development that we actually feeds into Brooklyn Springs Elementary, one of our lowest performing schools in the district, which is great to have some new people. You have some sewer down there, you probably have 300 or 400 acres that might be developed over the next 10 years. South of town, if you do development agreements, they'll be to serve the same purpose. We're pretty good on infrastructure. We got a new EMS station coming to Pleasant Hill. Kershaw has not had any new developments since I've been born. I know they're talking about one. We welcome growth down here, and I just don't think there's gonna be enough revenue generated in this part of the county to pay for anything major, because you can't pay for police cars, it's gotta be $100,000 plus. So, personally, I'll support anything around and plus around the city, anything up University Drive, there's a development that's going in the city, there's two developments going in the city. One behind old Walmart is going in the city. You go down, you'll have some development down the bypass, off of West Meeting Street, that feeds into city sewer, so it'll be annexed into the city. You have Springs that has property out here on the bypass on 903. I feel sure it will go in the city. All these, they have to go in the city if they want city water and sewer. Plus, if you join the city, they take the roads. The county don't take the roads, so it's a no-brainer now to go in the city. That's my thoughts. I will support anything up here. We already have the study, and I think Mr. Mostella's already run into some problems with constituents complaining about recreation fees.
Yeah, I'll brief you. I've had a couple people call me, this building in the Camp Creek area, which has the rec impact fees, and I've had a couple people call me and want to know what this is about. Said that they gonna pull a permit, and it was gonna cost them like $800 and something just for that one, for the rec thing. So, they was real concerned about the county adding that down here, growth. And I can understand her point. I'm like Steve, when you take away the cluster stuff, these developers are willing to give these impact fee costs and stuff to us just to be able to do it or whatever in the agreement or whatever. But down in Allen's area in Kershaw, or out my way out toward Buford, you got sparingly houses going up out there. That becomes an issue. You get people go to complaining, and I don't think it generates enough money to compensate for it, because they just certain things that we can do with it. The sheriff's part of it, all you can bill him is maybe a new sheriff's office or something, and building a few houses out there around Buford ain't gonna contribute enough for that. So it just certain limited things that you can do with these impact fees. I know it helps, but to me, it don't help all the growth problems that we have. We can't use the money where we want to use it. We are limited where we can use it. So that's just a little sticky thing with me, because I can imagine.
And one thing I want to point out, Roslyn's going to be a great subdivision, but 80% of the people, when they leave out of there, they're going to turn left and they're going to go shop in the Panhandle. I mean, that's a given. So, the city in our corridors, down 200 and Main Street and all, I mean, we need greenfield development, but we're in a thriving community. And one thing that is great that has happened with the high real estate prices, we are seeing our communities be redeveloped in places that you would never thought. Springdale Road, Elm Street, that just wouldn't happen if we were in a dying area. show you the difference between Lancaster and Chester County. I got it on my phone right here. I pulled up some real estate numbers. The average sales price in Lancaster County is like $345,173 a square foot. Chester County is $185 a square, $185,123 a square foot. I know growth has its problems, but we would be sitting here if Chester County's got the same problems we do with public safety. And we've had it since I've been here, and when I'm leaving gone, it's gonna be a struggle to fund everything. So, I mean, that's my.
So growth is coming.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how are you gonna pay for it?
Well, that's what I've said.
But what development agreements, when what you're gonna end up with is, like you see in the northern part, low quality housing. That's what you're gonna get.
What does low-quality housing have to do with impact fees? I mean.
Well, what he's talking about, Alan, is using the development agreement for the cluster overlays instead of impact fees. And so you're gonna get a lot of cluster developments that may or not be good.
I'll just note too, just from a legal standpoint, that development agreements only capture those properties that have greater than 25 acres of highlands, or, and again, CSO, cluster subdivision overlay, and MX projects would be in there. But anything less than 25 acres is not captured by a development agreement.
I don't think I saw a development less than 25 acres since I've been here.
But Chairman, I know that what we've got up in Indian Land is very helpful to us, to the county. However, you get down to Highway 5, if you get to Highway 5 going toward Rocky or York County, you got for sale signs all over there. That tells me that eventually we're going to have developments on the south side and the north side of number 5 along 521. If you come on down Riverside Road, you got all kind of property down Riverside Road that is going to be developed in the future. I don't know when it'll happen, but it'll happen. It's coming. So if we have no plan to let these developers help pay for what they help us create, then that's wrong, in my opinion. We need to let them pay their fair share. Right now, south of number 5, we're beginning to have problems throughout the county with maintaining our fire service because of people. We don't have the volunteers. Sometime we're going to have to pay somebody to sit there at these firehouses. Are we going to let all the taxpayers do it, or are we going to let these developers help us do it? We can sit back and wait till we start booming down here, and then it's too late. We need to be prepared. We need to get ourselves ready because it's coming this way, whether we like it or not.
Add something to what Larry said there. But the only thing with these impact fees, we can't pay personnel with it. We can build a firehouse, but we got to staff it with county money. And that's the only thing. That's why I say they not letting us do what we want to do with these impact fees. That we're so limited. You can't, you got the library, you could build a library, but when are they ever going to put a library in Beaufort or down around the river over somewhere? It ain't going to happen. So we could take that money and put it somewhere else, but we're not going to be allowed to because they just certain things you could do with that money. That's the only bad thing I got with that.
I agree. I agree with Mr. Monticello. I agree completely. But we have time to set a plan up that we can come up with some way to help developers pay for the growth that's coming here. It's coming. No matter what we say, it may not be next year. It might be 10 years down the road. But let's let them pay for what's being created. There's got to be a plan out there somewhere. If we can use impact fees, let's figure out a way we can use development agreements.
Exactly right.
Something needs to be worked out and made prepared for this county so we don't pass this growth on to our taxpayers. That's wrong, in my opinion.
And Mr.
Well-
Chairman, okay, great.
One observation I'd like to make is we have the highest building permit fees in the region. And that, in my opinion, is a development fee, and we're using it on whatever we want to use it on, whether it's general operating or whether it's a one-time expenditure. And I will not support any more on the backbones of the builders until which time as we reduce that fee down or somehow come up with a more comprehensive plan.
Think about that, Alan, we can use that money any way we want to.
I agree. If we want to use that for our problems that we see coming,
We can hire firemen with it, we can hire deputies.
yes, we can.
EMS people.
So I'm okay with keeping it, but I'm not okay with piling on anymore.
Oh, I understand.
Do you know what the rooftop fee is in River Chase?
Yeah, I know what it is, and it's ridiculously high, and I've asked for it to be reviewed.
$5,000, I think.
It's more than that. I think it's more like 7.
Well, that's less than the impact fees we've just implemented in Indian Land.
Well, they're gonna pay, well,
So at least that's ridiculously high.
well, it was set a long time ago, and it was ridiculous. And they also have to build a fire station, and for about $1 million after they sell their 250th house.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I was in there, they said there was 200 lots already sold.
So they'll go to 249 and quit.
Thing I'd like to ask, before, different from this, but we're talking about EMS stations, stuff like that. The gold mine promised us a EMS station out there at the gold mine. And the last time Dave was in here, that's before he left, he retired, but he was asking for some more incentives or approvals or whatever we was doing. And I asked him then, when were they going to honor that? And he said that the company was in some problems overseas, some mines. But he said as soon as that got squared away, that they were going to process it.
I think they've been sold, and you're not, there was nothing ever written.
But I think if we don't ask again, it may not never happen, but I think if we bring it back up, it could be something that we could get out there. I'm sure Clay'd love to get an EMS station out on that end of town if they're willing to pay for it, because they did tell us, it was in, when we approved all that for them, they was gonna build an EMS station out there.
All right, he's looking for some direction.
Well, and actually, go ahead.
I hadn't said anything because I was trying to listen to this discussion, and every time we get on impact fees, this is the way the discussion goes.
Right.
I know, it took, I've
And
been
we
talking
will-
about it for 5 years. It took 5
We
years.
will kick that can so far down the road, Dennis, and it'll be 5 years.
And then we'll be mad at you because we didn't implement them.
I'm saying to you that,
Blame you.
we probably need some of that information that Steve said, flexible zone and all of that, so we can make a decision, because I really don't want to discuss this to death again.
Duly noted. And I do know this is not the first time you all have had this conversation. I just want to think ahead a little bit. And I think to the chairman's idea about bringing you some more information at March, we will do that. But I want to make sure we're talking about two different things so we have the right conversation going. One, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about what was discussed at the December Committee of the Whole meeting, where we said as part of an interim UDO, we would bring back kind of a repeal and replace for the overlay district for the cluster development. So that was what we talked about in December, that we said will be repeal and replace, because that's been the conversation about having an interim UDO step to address some of this growth issues with the subdivisions. And so,
I don't know, it wasn't in the minutes where it was discussed that they would be bringing forth some ordinances to get rid of certain districts.
okay.
And I don't think that has been discussed, because to me, if we start getting rid of certain districts, MX is the one I think that needs to go away. It's more of a problem than anything else.
And that's what I wanted to clarify, is that when we come, the consultant doing the UDO is bringing forth an idea to do the interim repeal and replace, so to speak, of that overlay district. Rox, is that going to be on the 28th, or we don't have that scheduled quite yet?
I want that revisited.
That's what I'm
We
saying
will
in terms
revisit
of
that next
timeframe.
month before it goes to planning.
That's what I make sure.
We talked about it, but that's as far as it went. And see, that's where I think we're getting confused on. If we discuss it, that doesn't mean we approve it. It means that we talked about it. The next step is bringing it before us to approve with more information. I think that's where the problem is, because it was talked about, but we didn't make a decision.
And so that's what we agreed. It was talked about. And so then the next step is to bring you something to consider. And so the consultant is putting together a repeal and replace kind of interim UDO ordinance. We don't necessarily have the time frame exactly on that unless Rox has an update for me. But that's what we would bring forward for your conversation, for something concrete to digest.
Okay, when you bring it forward, you probably need to go back and refresh our memory on what we talked about in December, because I think we needed to be updated on that discussion. Because I tried to have a discussion, I'm not quite remembering all that we talked about. So we're gonna have to go back and review those minutes. I am to know exactly what we discussed in that committee meeting, in that council meeting.
Sure. So just two things to update. One is we expect to get a draft of the Flex District interim ordinance from our consultant by Friday of this week. So that will be just a draft that staff will review and provide feedback on. It is our anticipation to be on the April Planning Commission agenda with this draft ordinance for their consideration. And again, this would also include the repeal of the cluster subdivision ordinance as well. It would be, and so that was a desire, is to have it together as a package. And just to kind of reflect back on history, the way we approached this at the prior committee of the whole meeting was we outlined our plan of where we were going forward with this, and to please provide us any caution flags before we moved forward. And the council that was present at that time was supportive of that. And I think we've talked about this process probably in, I think we can go back and check the agendas, but I think probably 3 committee of the whole meetings, not including this one.
I think I need, what I read on flexible zoning or floating zoning and all scares the heck out of me. I know some areas that'll work good on big developments for having houses and multifamily, but people move down here to get away from the problems that they've had in the cities. They like the single family neighborhoods. We're not going to have mass transit down here. We're not going to have busing in a lot of our areas. So I've got a concern, and I would like to see what a presentation to this council before they spend a lot of money on consultants on a zoning classification system that the council needs to know what this type zoning is. It's not traditional zoning, and you need to understand that before we spend a lot of money on something that may or may not go through.
I think, and I think we need a review of what we talked about and any other questions that have come up. So when we do move forward, that we will have a clear understanding of where we're going. Because, maybe I missed something there. I missed a little bit there, but I didn't know we was to this point. I thought we discussed it, but I thought it was going to be more discussions going forward. Not to this point, and it may only be me. And
I got the same feeling that we discussed it, but I got the feeling it was a pretty informal discussion, that there was nothing formal. I mean, that's what I think is the confusion part for me.
I think the discussion is good, Mr. Chairman, but all I'm thinking about is when developers come to our county and they build beautiful homes, and we don't charge them anything, and they leave here with a dump truck load of our money and head back north, and we got all the problems. We're not letting them pay for it. We should let them pay for it. They helped create it. We approve it, they create it. let's let them pay for it. I don't care what it is. If it's impact fees, development agreements, I don't care one way or the other. I could care less.
And
Just let them pay for it.
the $64,000 question I've asked since I've been on here, I've asked Dennis, and I've asked staff, everyone, when does growth pay for itself? What's the break-even point on a house? Nobody will answer. But you can look at your tax bill, your sales tax, local option sales tax, you increased this year. As far as funding capital projects in this county, we have got a great tool that's taking in over $1 million a month on the sales tax. You know, we're doing a jail and a lot of other projects that if we hadn't grown.
But we just saw tonight or today how we're limited to spending that money. We can't spend it on what we need to.
Well, that's
like I've had concerns about these thread trails for years, and I keep saying, eventually, with all I found out and studied on it, there's going to be 101 miles of thread trails in this county eventually, and who is going to pay for it? I don't want to pay for it. I don't want my family to pay for it. If they want to walk, get out on one of the neighborhood streets. That's what we do. You know, they don't have to worry about it. But somebody needs to pay for this growth, and I don't want to do it. I don't want these folks out here to do it. I want somebody else to buy some sheriff's deputies' cars or fire trucks or EMS equipment. They came here, we let them come here. Let's let them be good citizens and pay for coming here, in my opinion.
I would like to say that from a budget standpoint, I still contend our budget's fluffy from last year when we were talking about it. So we're very fortunate to have that, if you will, as a county. But I did mention at one of our meetings that Clemson did a study on when a house pays for itself or doesn't pay for itself, and I gave Dennis a copy. Well, I gave him only a copy, so I don't have mine anymore. But anyway, we probably need to have that study done again, a third-party expert to tell us those kind of things that, Larry, that you're concerned about, because that's important 5 years, 10 years down the road. I might be dead and gone, but my kids will still be here.
You know, we've had 2 developers in our county come and leave the residents of this community, nice, beautiful homes, left with lousy roads. Now, today, the residents are paying for it. They had to get a bond, and they're paying the bond because we allow developers to come here, do shoddy work, and let them leave. And what's bad about it, one of them even came back into county and did more work. That's wrong. We would have said, yeah, you can come on back, but you fix those roads in the X number of development up there, and we'll let you come back. Otherwise, forget it.
Yeah, I think we addressed that, we closed the road system.
So we'll schedule more time on this in March, and we do have the March 11th bus tour. That'll be a great opportunity where we can see things together and have some more of this conversation.
Are these committee of the whole meetings now at 1?
For the next 3 months, yes.
All right, because that's why I was late. I didn't realize it was changed.
I was late too.
Ms. Simpson, send him a calendar reminder.
Dock his pay.
The problem with calendar reminder is I might not look at the calendar.
We thank y'all
But
for
I do apologize.
all the hard work that you do. So, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn these proceedings, Mr. Chairman.
I have a second from Ms. McGriff.
I didn't second.
We want to stay longer, don't we?
Yeah, we need to stay longer because I thought it was at 4, so I'm
Just
ready
stay
to go
after
more.
class. I second it. He can stay after
All right,
class.
we have a second from Mr. Blackman. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. This meeting is adjourned.
I didn't look at the time either, Terry.
Yes, exhausting.
They called me 3 minutes home at lunch.
If I was a drinking man, I'd go home and get a drink right now.
Exactly.